Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Alpha Touring Change Season 5 for 2022. That's right, we are back in the Premier Touring Car Races series hosted on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available on PC, known as iRacing, to kick off the second part of the extensive 13-round season. And where it is the case, whilst we may have already completed 9 rounds, we've still got 4 more to go, starting with round 10 tonight. And we are here in Canada at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, known in short as the Mosport circuit, for what is expected to be an absolute thrill of a round, given the fact it is our final sprint race round on the calendar. It's an action-packed schedule for tonight, and I'm glad that we are back and ready to go racing once again after a significant break of a week through the mid-season break. And our schedule for tonight, times in British Summer Time, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1, is as follows. It will be the case that in just under 14 minutes time, we'll be kicking off with our 15-minute qualifying session, which will be used to determine the grid for our first race of the evening. That'll follow immediately after, and that will be at 8 o'clock, and that will be sprint heat number 1. The first sprint race of our 3 on the schedule for tonight. 15 minutes, no pit stops expected, of course, in any of these sprint races. 15 minutes of all-in action, and come the end of it, the dust will settle, and then we'll begin to set the grid for sprint heat number 2. That will follow a couple of minutes after, approximately 20 past 8, another 15-minute race with a slightly mixed-up grid, and then we'll be bringing you a brief break before heading into our third and final race of the evening, and that is our sprint feature. Race number 3, a 30-minute race, double the time duration of the previous 2, and that will be at 8:45 tonight. This circuit, of course, one that's renowned over the course of a multitude of series, particularly in the North American continent, and it is the case that it's going to be my pleasure to bring it to you live, or as a post-round broadcast, but as if it were live, I should say, because in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and this broadcast is being brought to you on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/TX141, or alternatively, if you're more of a YouTube user, you can always go to youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, and tune in there. But just to point out once again, all the racing action at this circuit occurred earlier in the week, back on Monday, but it is the case from Monday the 19th of September, we're bringing you all the racing action as if it were live today on what is Sunday the 25th of September. But looking ahead to the schedule that lies in wait over the remainder of the rounds, and where we've been so far over the course of the season, is the case, of course, there's 13 rounds and only 1 winner come the end of it in both the Alpha and the Delta Championships, and also in the Teams Championship. And you can see there, we're now heading down into the latter third of the calendar, and today we are at the Mosport circuit. But before that, it was the case, of course, we kicked off back on the 11th of July at the Belle Isle circuit, started in the United States of America, and what a brilliant opener that was indeed. Our Alpha round there, our feature race round, which was full of drama and surprises and brilliant battle in action. It was then the case we made our way from Belle Isle to Laguna Seca, staying in the United States on the 18th of July there to kick off our first sprint race round of the season. And there was the case, there was plenty of drama and plenty of close moments and plenty of moments which you'd say that's definitely touring car racing class action, given the amount of door-to-door contact we saw in California. Then we made our way across the Pacific Ocean to Japan for the Fuji Speedway, and it was the case there we saw a mix-up where it was a bit more of a traditional style of race, a more traditional circuit perhaps, but it was the case all the action did ebb and flow, and particularly in the midfield we saw plenty of battles and plenty of slipstream battles down the extended start-finish straight. The 1st of August saw round number 4 at Alton Park, a circuit synonymous with touring car racing in the United Kingdom, indeed in British Touring Car Championship, and there we had 3 sprint races which saw plenty of action, plenty of near-miss moments, indeed some very nasty moments for some of our drivers, but the key thing was all the battling action was intense, indeed those rivalries only intensified. Round number 5 saw us then head our way across the European continent to Italy for the Monza circuit in another Alpha round, and there over the course of the 60 minutes of racing action we saw it was the case there was a major incident on lap number 2. Indeed, a Monza turn 1 did not come to strike us, but the curse of the second lap of Monza definitely did strike hard, and we saw multiple drivers have to retire, and that shook up the championship somewhat. Then we made our way to the Red Bull Ring for what was round number 6, and at the Red Bull Ring, I hate to say I did happen to lose my voice off to the broadcast for the simple reason that at the Red Bull Ring we had multiple 3-wide moments, particularly in the run to turn number 1, and indeed a 6-wide moment almost to the run to turn 1 at one point in the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring National Layout, and it was the case of the 15th of August there, we definitely saw the ante-upped. Then we made our way back from Austria to Italy once again for the Imola circuit, and that was a fantastic round. Whilst we had a limited grid at Imola, it was the case of the 22nd of August. We saw plenty of racing action, a lot of strategic nuance, And then it was Donington Park that followed after in the United Kingdom there. Returning to the theme of sprint race in the United Kingdom, and Donington Park saw plenty of action on the 29th of August, where it was the case. Many a driver came unstuck at the British circuit, and well, the championship was furthered on. And then last time, of course, we were back on the 5th of September in Brazil at the Interlagos circuit located in Sao Paulo. And it was the case there in what was a feature race round. We saw plenty of near-miss moments and indeed a 7-way fight for the win that went all the way down to the wire. But the key theme was that all of our drivers were really having to manage their fuel versus their ability to push one another hard. And indeed, at one point, we even thought it would have been the case. Our Delta Championship leader of Connor Achatella was going to have that opportunity to take a win overall in the series. But it wasn't to be. But still, the racing action there was ferocious. And it has really set us up well for going into the second part of the season. Again, we had our mid-season break, and then, of course, it is the case that today we're at the Mosport circuit. The racing event occurred on the 19th of September, and then we've got 3 more rounds after today. Mid-Ohio and Watkins Glen both being alpha rounds or feature race rounds. We've got 60 minutes of racing action. Mid-Ohio being on the 26th of September, and Watkins Glen being on the 3rd of October. 2 very different styles of circuit, but the key focus there being both based in the United States of America, and Watkins Glen in particular as the penultimate round, when indeed the revival place of road racing in the United States of America after the Second World War. You can imagine that all of our drivers will be looking to get their best possible results over these last 2 rounds before we do head into the season finale in the special round as highlighted in purple-pink there. And it is the case at Road Atlanta, the roller coaster ride of a road racing circuit on the 10th of October. We're not quite sure on what all the rules and regulations are going to be or the style of race that'll be at Road Atlanta. We're to understand it is an extended feature race, so longer than the 60-minute races we have seen in our alpha rounds or the blue denoted rounds on the calendar, but it is the case Road Atlanta is definitely going to have some surprises, and there may be more than one pit stop on the cards, but all that and more will be revealed in due time. Indeed, whilst we've completed most of the schedule already, we've still got an action-packed schedule all the way through to the conclusion. But coming from looking ahead to here and now, it is the case at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park today, also known as Mosport in short, the contraction of the brand that owns this circuit, plus also the name of the circuit brought together. This circuit, located in the town of Bowmanville in the province of Ontario in Canada, is a circuit made up of 10 corners, as you can see here from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com. Now, you may be looking at this thinking it looks very fast and it looks like it's full of sweeping corners. We are definitely not wrong. You're spot on. This circuit is a very tricky circuit for the reason being that with a lot of these high-speed corners, what you can't see on a circuit map because it's 2-dimensional is the fact that the majority of these corners have blind apexes, which means you are turning into a corner where you can't actually see the apex of the driver until you've entered the corner, and that means you've got to be bold and believe in your circuit knowledge and also your muscle memory. And also on top of that is the case that a lot of these corners undergo a number of undulations and elevation changes throughout. So particularly turns 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, we're going to see our drivers go through a huge series of elevation changes over those 5 corners, and particularly at turn number 2 at Clayton Corner, as we'll ride on board in qualifying, you will see just how far our drivers drop from the entry point into Clayton all the way down to the exit heading up towards Quebec Corner at turn number 3. But it's not just about the opening 5 corners, it's also about the long straightway known as the Mario Andretti straightway, the back straight that runs from turn 5 at Moss Corner, named after Sir Sterling Moss, all the way up to the S's at turns 8 and 9, and there we'll see plenty of slipstream assisted passes or indeed drag races up to turn number 8, and then we have the switch of the S's at turns 8, 9, running up towards White's Corner at turn number 10, where we could see some moves on the inside to outside or the outside to inside, and that will wrap up the lap before we do it all over again. But we're looking at a very fast lap here, while the highest average lap speeds on the calendar, and with, of course, with 90 drivers expected to take to the circuit today, we are sure to see plenty of near-miss modes in these sprint races. But of course, when we have 3 sprint races and not a single feature race, it is the case that our drivers are required to push things even harder because there's no reward for strategy. It's all about absolutely delivering over a shorter period of time. Now, of course, with sprint races, there are rules, and we have rules in every round, and let's take you through those for those who are uninitiated. It is the case in terms of setup, this is an open setup series where drivers are allowed to tweak the cars as they so desire, but the only thing they must not tweak is the car fuel load, which has been restricted to 39 litres for this round. So they'll be only able to take 39 litres, and that ensures they can get to the end of each race unscathed on fuel capacity. In the sprint races, no pit stops are expected in any of the 3 races, as we said earlier. The grid for race 2 shall be a top 4 reverse of race 1's results, and what that means is, whilst the grid for race number 1 will be set based on qualifying, in race number 2 we will see whoever takes the win in race number 1 will start in 4th place for race number 2. Conversely, whoever comes home in 4th will start on pole for race number 2, and whoever finishes 5th downwards in race number 1, well, that's where they'll sit on the grid for race number 2. The grid for race number 3 is another partial reverse grid. It's a top 8 reverse of the race 2 2 results. So that means whoever takes the win in race number 2 starts in P8, and of course we work it backwards there to our 8th place finisher in race number 2. They'll start on pole for race number 3, and if you finish 9th or downwards, there's no prizes for you. You start from 9th downwards on the grid in race number 3. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 9 or more instant points, and a driver shall be disqualified from a given race if they accumulate 16 or more instant points. The following bonus points are available as well. 1 point for pole position, that's in qualifying, and that's the overall pole position. It's not the pole position in the Alpha or the Delta class. 1 point for fastest lap over all 3 of the races. So whoever sets the fastest lap over all 3 races come the end of today's racing, they'll get that bonus point. There's also 1 point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instance over the round. 1 point for leading a lap at a given race. And there's 1 point for the Naked Aggression Award, which is the most overtakes over the round as combined over the 3 races. Well, that's enough rules, regulations, and whatnot. I know what you're all here for. Indeed, I'm here for it as well. And that is the race in action. And as we head back to our live pictures here, it is the case our drivers making their way on around the circuit. And here's one driver who right now and here today will be looking to up the ante. It is Francois Shink, the Beaver Buzz driver, who I can tell you going into this round is not your championship leader. He is in 2nd place in the championship, but he has closed the gap to championship leader Robert Abrams down to 17 points, the closest it has been for a sizable time. And what that effectively means is right now Shink has the momentum, and he took the momentum at Interlagos with a brilliant performance with the win at the Brazilian circuit. It was a difficult day for Robert Abrams by comparison, but damage limitation did apply, and Shink now really needs to capitalise on that and continue to close the gap. Every point he can get over Abrams today will assist him in bringing that gap down. And of course, we are starting to think about the drop rounds. We do have a couple of drop rounds in the overall championship standings to accrue for as well as time goes on, but Shink is really in the driving seat. Meanwhile, Robert Abrams here, we see him making his way towards the end of the current practice lap in this final practice warm-up session. The Yellow Flag Motorsports driver here in the Hyundai Veloster, where Shink is in the Hyundai Elantra, will be looking to just keep those points coming on in and manage it accordingly. You could say he's a little bit of a Colin Turkington equivalent if you're a bit of a British Touring Car Championship fan, whereby it's the case of Colin Turkington, known of course for managing championships by, in the end when he's in the championship lead, just making sure he gets the right amount of points from each and every race. And Robert Abrams, we're looking to do so today, because we haven't seen Abrams necessarily take to the top step in every race since his dominant run in the opening half of the season, but it's been the case he's always been up there, and when it hasn't been looking his day in qualifying, he's turned it around in the races. There's been no doubt about that. As he rolls his way on through here, what we could also tell you is in the Delta Championship, we do not have in attendance today what is Connor Achatella. It is the case that our Delta Championship leader, by a sizable margin of over 100 points over Gus Blondell, is not in attendance, and indeed Blondell himself is not in attendance. But we do have Eric Statzer here, one of a limited number of Delta drivers. Of course, our drivers denoted by the purple sash on the time and tell on the left-hand side of your screen. Also, you can see them in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen when we see the name and driver number plate there on the bottom left-hand corner, and also their team name, or it's the case of Statzer, he's a privateer, so he's not representing an official team in this series, but it is the case that Stats are there, one of our Delta drivers, and they are the equivalent of our Pro-Am drivers, if you will, where they're not quite on the pace of our Alphas, but it is the case they're gradually building up that speed, that confidence, and getting closer and closer on pace as time goes on. A new feature for Season 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, of course. Season 4 and before that saw all of our drivers in a single class, but it is the case we decided to experiment with an Alpha and a Delta Championship in order to give our drivers a little bit more to play for. And indeed, our Alpha drivers, or our Pro drivers, are denoted by the likes of Micah Hendricks here with a blue sash next to their name, and you can see that there on the timing tower, and also in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen with Hendricks there for Blue Flag Motorsports in the 473 Audi RS3. And indeed, Hendricks having switched the Audi RS3, and I think it is the case there, looking to try and demonstrate that whilst the car is not necessarily favourable in the touring car racing class currently on iRacing, it can be made to work in the capable hands of Hendricks. Now, just under a minute to go before we make that transition over to what is the qualifying session, we do want to quickly introduce 2 new drivers for today. It is the case that in the Pro-Am class, or that Delta class, we do have Joe Camilleri. It is the case Joe Camilleri is not currently out on the circuit, indeed in the pit lane. He's just outside the pit lane, so we can't actually show you his car, but we will see him in the Audi RS3. And we also do have in attendance today what is Wojciech Surodowicz, and it is the case the Polish driver, not currently out on the circuit, indeed in the pit lane, but we'll get to see them out in the qualifying session. And it is the case that Surodowicz is in the Alpha class. But without further ado, as our drivers are heading towards the end of this final warm-up session, we'll very shortly have to cut away in order to do a little bit of magic to make sure the qualifying session does not reveal the final qualifying times prematurely. But we do have 15 minutes of qualifying coming up very soon, and we'll have to wait and see here. With a number of drivers not in attendance, this does present major opportunities to the likes of Giovanni Romano here, the 337 driver who we saw in his debut all the way back at Alton Park. A very strong driver, not quite been on the ball compared to his peers in more recent rounds, but at the same time it could be a huge opportunity. But we'll be right back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as we transition over to qualifying. And with our replay file magic worked, here's the case. Qualifying is now underway. 15 minutes, it's go, 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 and immediately all of our drivers will be piling out the pit lane as soon as possible here, and we'll have to wait and see who can set the best possible time over the course of the 15 minutes. Now, the one thing about this circuit, as you may have noticed from the practice times that are being set, it's quite a short lap around here. We're looking at lap times just under 1.5 minutes, in the region of around what is 1 minute and 25 seconds. That means our drivers have plenty of time to set laps, but at the same time, given the fact that this circuit is quite fast flowing, and also there's a lot of high speed corners and some significant straightaways here, particularly that back straight down the Mario Andretti straightaway, what that means is that our drivers will be looking to get the toe off of one another in order to buffet what is their speed on the straights by 2 to 3 miles an hour. Now that could prove very pivotal in terms of how the grid lines up, and you can imagine if you've got teammates out on the circuit, indeed at breakfast or dinner, with the team that really demonstrated that affluence of teamwork throughout the season, it is the case there that you could be working as a team after you set your respective banker laps to try and improve your respective laps and get yourselves locking out the front row of the grid. Now we see David Bauer here doing a bit of side-to-side weaving. He is our lead driver in the field right now as he makes his way on around here, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on in his first flying lap, as we'll be riding on board with him very shortly. But everybody heading around right now. We do have a couple of drivers going a little bit slowly, and indeed we do have one driver just left the pits, and that's Eric Statzer, but we've also got a couple of drivers yet to leave the pit lane. But that in mind, we now ride on board with David Bowers. He takes us around for the first flying lap of this qualifying session at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. As he makes his way across the timeline down into turn number 1, braking nice and early here to trail brake downhill into the right hander, and in fourth gear exits the corner and charges up towards turn number 2. As he heads up the hill here into the crest, he'll dab the brakes, drop a gear and roll it on in here, and you can see letting the car understeer a little bit wide before bringing it back together for that very late apex. And as he exits out of 2, now heading up into turn 3, back on the brakes as he brings the car to corner apex through Quebec corner and exits out here early on the throttle. You can see just letting the car flowing out and now making his way through the King of 4. As he charges all the way downhill through the King of 4 here, a completely unsighted corner. You just got to go full in, turn in and commit. Now braking into Sir Sterling Moss corner, down the gearbox to second, win back to first gear, then down to second, back down to first, and then as he exits out the corner here through turn number 5, it's now down the back straight, down Mario Andretti straightway as he heads all the way out towards turn number 8. And that's the first half of the lap already done in the space of a very short period of time. Now, charging on down, he gets a brief breather here, but already you've seen just how much of a line high-speed corner apex syndrome we do have here. And as he makes his way all the way up towards the S's, it turns 8 to 9, staying over to the left, bringing it down the gearbox very shortly to 4th gear as he comes from 5th to 4th. And as he flows through turn number 8, now bringing the car into the middle of the road for turn number 9, down to 3rd gear before heading over to the left to brake for the final corner here, staying in 3rd. And as he exits out the corner, it's a nice lap from David Bowers to kick off our qualifying session. What's it going to be as he crosses the timeline? It's going to be a 27.25. I do think we've got more time on the board, however. And I think this track is going to evolve rather rapidly as our drivers continue to come on in here with more and more lap times. And we do see a Logan Mckenzie there at 28.311. Not quite delivering the lap time compared to his peers so far, but still we've got plenty of time on the board. But so far, in terms of all the times that have been set, it does look as though our newcomer there of Surodrich has been able to set the fastest time of a 26.997, but still got time to go. And the number 80 driver right now definitely delivering as he makes his way through turn number 3 once again. But as he heads on around here, the drivers who have yet to set lap times include Matt Shepka. As Shepka right now makes his way out of the pit lane, so he's decided to go a little bit later into this qualifying session, perhaps waiting for the drivers to head round on the circuit and bring the circuit temperature up, and also lay down some rubber and some marbles to help with the grip. And as he makes his way through turn number 3, we are expecting the Honda Civic Tyre Power to potentially struggle a little bit at this circuit, given that this is a power circuit and it's a very high speed circuit in nature. The Honda will carry a lot of speed through the corners and also be bold on the brakes, but the downside of it is it doesn't have straight line speed compared to its peers, and that's what holds the Honda back. At technical corner focused circuits, the Honda is the #1 car, but when you're on a power circuit or a circuit which sees a high average speed, where you're looking at 4th, 5th and 6th gear being the dominant gears, such as today at Mosport, that's where the Honda is going to struggle by comparison. Although, to make me mark my words there, we can see Giovanni Romano currently in P4 after one flying lap, but more times are coming on in. David Bowers improved to a 27.173. Francois Shink improves temporarily. Then it's the case that Swiderich has gone faster there with a 26.2 and 6/10 clear of Francois Shink, and those lap times are continuing to tumble down. And I think we're going to be looking at 25s at this rate, given the fact we've only had 2 laps coming in, and already we're seeing low 26s on the board and more to come. But as our drivers continue to fly on around here, it is the case we're only 5 minutes into the qualifying session, and conversely, what is very odd to see here is we've not seen too many times from our Delta drivers. Stats are right now setting the fastest time of the Deltas in P9 overall, in fact P10 now, as we see that James Carr jumps up to P2, and stats are there on what is a 27.86. And the only other time set is from Daniel Sedino here, is down in P13, and the Blue Flag Motorsports driver, on currently what is there at 29.08, the best part of what is 1.2 seconds of the stats' time, and indeed with plenty of time to go. I think Sedino's just getting himself set up right now, because we have typically seen that Sedino is the stronger qualifying driver out of the two of them, and in stats is the stronger racing driver compared to Sedino in terms of being able to maintain that consistency, although they're very nearly and closely matched in the championship as they roll the way on around here today. Meanwhile, a little bit further down, I can see that Fernando Takahashi making his way up towards turn number 5 right now into Moss Corner as he rolls his way on through. Well, he's in that Audi RS3, of course, the car which does seem to be the car which many have struggled with over the course of the season when they brought it to the circuits left, right and centre, and Takahashi is going to try and bring it up the field as he makes his way on down the back straight here. But we do see that pole time, that provisional pole time as set by Swiderich, is now on a 25.864. It is continuing to improve, and Justin Rose has gone now provisional P2, half a second off of the Polishman as they make the way on through. And I think at this point it is the case the newcomer in the Alpha class is definitely showing everybody up a little bit in terms of that pace, and this is absolutely impressive, it must be said, on his debut, as we do see here Takahashi rolling his way through what is turn number 10. And what's this lap going to be for? I believe it's going to be his first flying lap as he crosses the timeline. It is going to be in P15 on a 29.289. But he's still got time to go, to be fair, and I think that might have just been getting the tyres up to temperature on his first flying lap. But as he rolls his way on around here, we do look from Takahashi to what is Aaron Lahr, who's currently our lowest place driver in terms of having set a lap time, but we've not had the time from Michael McLeod, Micah Hendricks or Joe Camilleri, as we are waiting for them, or I do believe it may be the case that they're choosing not to qualify and they'll start from the back of the grid as a result. But as we do see Aaron Lahr making his way down through turn 4 and up towards 5 here, is against the Elantra driver, a little bit stepping out there under braking into Moss Corner, and that's the challenge, of course, coming down through turn number 4 into Moss at 5, is the fact you're coming down the hill with so much speed, and the fact that with these cars, with these touring car racing cars them being front engine, front wheel drive, you want that brake bias as far back as possible to give you rotation, but have it too far back and you'll find that the rear end of the car steps out with so much momentum behind it, and that can cause the car to be an untamable beast. And we're seeing that Aaron Lahr, they're giving a sign that rear end just stepping out very slightly. But meanwhile, speaking of a driver who doesn't normally step out in terms of control of the car, Giovanni Romano makes his way to the final corner, and we ride on board with him as he takes us around for a flying lap in the Honda Civic Type R. Moving up to P2 there on that lap. He's now going to try and go a bit faster, now 4.5 tenths of the Swiderich as he makes his way on through turn number 1. Nicely compacted together, they're coming out to 1 now into 2. Bringing the car all the way over to the right hand side. You can see just a dab of the brake there as he rolls it down through turn 2, keeping it nice and tight to the apex there. The strength of the Honda, of course, is its cornering capabilities. And as he makes his way into Quebec corner at turn number 3, you can see just slightly having to bring the car to apex gradually with a bit of understeer creeping in under the initial braking phase, but controlling that well. And as he heads down through 4 and up towards 5, completely flat out through 4 here, and now coming off the throttle as he sets the car for the braking zone into Moss at 5, and well, taking that apex curve a bit too hard there. The initial car loss, and it causes the car to slide, and that's where he's hit that curve so hard and so high going into the corner. With all the momentum, it's upset the suspension, That's what I think as well. We know that the Honda Civic Type R typically is not comfortable on curbs. Of course, this being an open setup series, our drivers can tweak the suspension, but there's only so far they can go based on the balance of performance regulations, and it is the case of Giovanni Romano there really becoming undone and unsettled through Moss Corner as he heads up towards turn 8 of the S's. And going for a very early apex there, and to be fair, you can go for an early apex in the front engine front wheel drive car because these cars are made for corner entry given the fact the front wheels are doing all the work. And as he comes through the final corner here at turn number 10, what's it going to be when he comes to the line? I suspect this is not going to be an improvement from Roman as he comes on across, and no indeed he stays P3 after being demoted, and Matt Shepka jumps up to P2, and well, Shepka, to be fair, might be showing up Romano a little bit here in the fact that while Shepka's not normally been the fastest of all the drivers, there's one thing we can count on from Shepka is good surprises from him, and he's delivering a surprise so far. He's currently 3/10 over the pole lap, but to be fair to the 490 driver, it has been an uphill battle all season in the Honda Civic Type R, but he's showing that he's been absolutely dealing and determined to find the pace in the car, and he's finding it here today at Mosport as he makes his way on around. And I think right now there may be a little bit of sweating down in the paddock from some of the other drivers in the Alpha class here, in the fact that we have a Honda right up there looking at the front row currently, and that is a 25.97 from Shepka versus Raducci's 25.65 as they make the way on around here. Not long to go in this qualifying session now, only 5 minutes to go, but it is the case that right now Daviton Wojciech Raducci is currently provisional pole and was at 25.647, and he's looking to improve it even more. Only a tenth off his previous best as he crossed the timeline, and as he makes his way out to turn number 1, he's got the draft there of the 35 car in front of David Bauer, who makes his way down to turn number 2, and this could potentially enable him to up that lap time even more and raise that bar even higher, but we'll have to wait and see what happens as Logan Mckenzie improves to P6. They're tucked in behind what I do believe in front of him, unless I'm mistaken, is John Lauzon, and indeed they're trying to gain a bit of a toe, a bit of a cheeky toe, and that's just enabled him to improve slightly as they make the way on around here. But meanwhile, big question, where is Robert Abrams? He is currently down in P10 as we look to Gurkan Demir, who's running around in P11 at the moment in the qualifying standings, and it looks as though the Elantra driver here not quite having the day he wants as he rolls his way down through turn number 2 for Talksteer Racing and goes onto that grass. The car understeers away from him. He's got to be careful because that car's going to carry a lot of weight and momentum down out the hill, but in the end he brings the inertia under control and now heads it up into turn number 3. But that was a very near miss moment, and I wouldn't be surprised there if there was a little bit of worry the car was going to go to the wall, and that would have been his qualifying session effectively over given the amount of time it would have taken to tie it to the pits and bring it back on out. But thankfully that was not to be, as right now it is the case that looking further down in the Delta class here, it's Eric Statzer who's currently on Delta part P14 with Daniel Sedino the best part of 4 tenths behind, and then Fernando Takahashi only what is 200ths off of the Blue Flag Motorsport driver here. It's looking very close, to be fair, in the battle to be on the same row, or essentially the main contender behind Eric Statzer at the moment, and Camilleri not setting a lap time, Hendricks not setting a lap time, and Michael McLeod not setting lap times here as time wears on. Only 16 drivers taken to the circuit for the purposes of qualifying here, but indeed those lap times are coming on in thick and fast. And well, we do look here from what is Daniel Sedino up to Shepka, who's currently P2, as we see him going off there at the final corner as he comes to the line. And well, he does not improve. In fact, he parks up to say that's it, and I think he might have a chance to come through. Francois Shink jumps back to the pit. Well, I think they're all going to quickly jump back and get themselves out for one more lap. They'll have just enough time to do so, but as we see Giovanni Romano making his way on around, is anybody improving at the moment? Well, Jerome Bajulaz making his way for Beaver Buzz Energy through the S's, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 10 here, it is the case of Bajulaz in what is the 99 car as he rolls his way out of the final corner. He had a better Sector 1, Sector 2 wasn't an improvement, Sector 3 was not an improvement. It's not enough to move him from P11 right now, and Bajulaz having a difficult qualifying session as he rolls his way on through. Who else is potentially on a bolder lap here? Well, we do have Justin Rhodes for breakfast for dinner heading up into the S's. He improved in Sector 1. Sector 2 has not been an improvement on a personal level, and as he makes his way for the final couple of corners, a bit of understeer creeping on the car there at turn number 9. Can he bring it back together for White's corner at 10? He does just about, and as he exits the corner, what's it going to be when he comes to the line? It's not an improvement from Rhodes. What about from James Carr here? Time is wearing down. He has got the provisional pole sitter in front, who's not improved in Sectors 1 and 2. Carr has improved in Sector 1, Sector 2 he's not improved in. And as he heads into the final corner here, what's it going to be for Carr? Will it be an improvement from P8, or will he stay where he is? He improves to P4, it's a good lap, but John Lauzon's an absolutely fast one here as he comes to line P9, but he's only improved slightly. He stays P9, but he's improved to a 26.629, and it is the case. That shows you how tight it is in that top 10 as well, with James Carr jumping up to P4, Shepka and Shinka in the pit lane. They've decided enough's enough, and it is the case that right now nobody is able to hold a candle to what is Wojciech Swierdrich as they make the way on through here, and it is the case that our provisional pole sitter is looking comfortably at the top of the pile, 3/10 clear of everybody else, but from P2 in the hands of Shepka all the way down to what is there, Robert Abrams in P11. We have got 10 drivers separated by a margin of 9/10, and they're all Alpha drivers, all itching for that championship lead, and it is the case that right now, whilst Abrams and Shink are both the main contenders, let's not count out the likes of John Lauzon. Alternatively, what is Matt Shepko, indeed David Bauer and Justin Rhodes as well. This could be the big turning point in the return to the season of racing, in the fact that we have seen some upsets this season, but we are looking at right now a very shaken up grid order, and really is the case. Shepko in P2 there in that Honda. That Honda could go extremely well in the races, given the fact it has its pace build up very rapidly, but also can protect its tyres very well, and in the 30-minute feature race, that could be the difference. But qualifying complete, of course, we complete qualifying at the 15-minute mark, and now we jump over to the grid. So our grid for race number 1 today, we can see that Wojciech Swierdrich is on pole position in his maiden race of the season. The privateer taking pole position by 3/10 over Matt Shepko, who starts P2. Francois Shink and James Carr make up your second row. Beaver Buzz Energy's driver ahead of Breakfast for Dinner's driver. Giovanni Romano and Justin Rhodes on row number 3, with Logan Mckenzie for Yellow Flag Motorsports there, line up alongside David Bauer for Breakfast for Dinner on row number 4. Row 5 sees Jerome Brajulas joined by John Lauzon, P9, P10, and then we have Robert Abrams and Gurkan Demir started P11 at P12. Behind them on the grid, it is the case we then have what is Aaron Lahr, P13, ahead of late pole sitter in the Delta class, Fernando Takahashi. Well done to him for taking the pole position in the Delta class, P14, and then Eric Statzer and Daniel Sedino, the two other Delta drivers putting in qualifying times, P15, P16. Mike Hendricks, P17, not setting a qualifying time. Michael McLeod, the same in P18, and then Joe Camilleri on his debut, starting at P19 at the back of the grid there. If he's able to get the car out onto the grid, there is a little bit of concern here in the fact there have been some issues in getting the cars on out of the circuit, but we do have a safety car in front of here. I do wonder if we're potentially going to have a rolling start, given the fact it's normally the tradition that we do have what is there a standing start, but we have got a safety car in front here, and perhaps it is the case, given the run to turn number 1, it has been decided we're going to go with the rolling start instead in order for safety rather than a potential major incident into the opening corner. But as our grid lines on up, it is the case here for what is race number 1 at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park circuit. We have the gridding process complete, and very shortly we will be getting away. And as the safety car peels away here, we do have a full formation lap, and we do see it is the case that Shepka and Swierdrich are pulling away at the front of the field as everybody makes their way around, and of course to try and get that tyre temperature up as much as possible. But we do have Micah Hendricks right at the back of the grid. He has joined the grid, but no Michael McLeod, alternatively Joe Camilleri here today. It is the case both the Alfa and the Delta driver not able to make it to the grid for the purposes of what is sprint race number 1, or sprint heat 1, the 15-minute race. But as our drivers make their way around right now, we do look to the stream chat there, and we can see both the YouTube and also the Twitch chats, so don't be shy if you tune in, feel free to say hi. And we say hello indeed to John Lauzon there in the YouTube chat, who says hey, hope you're doing well, John, and I hope you're excited to see how everything unfolds today, and you're having a great weekend as well. And indeed, what it's been a Sunday, I hope you've all had a great weekend so far, and I hope you have a great remainder of your weekend, and part of that can be watching this fantastic racing action as it gets underway very shortly. But as our drivers make the way on around right now, it is the case, if you're someone like Gurkan Demir right now, you're going to be thinking about what can you do from being in the midfield here in P11 as he runs in formation, doing a little bit of sprinting on the throttle and then dabbing the brakes, and also a little bit of weaving on the steering wheel there to get some sidewall tyre temperature. But as he heads on around, of course, a full formation lap here just gives our drivers a little bit more comfort, and when we do come around to that start-finish line next time around, we are definitely going to be seeing a full pelt and thunder from all of our drivers here as they head in towards turn number 1. And how will it all play out, of course, that is what time will tell. As they make the way on through, it is the case that we do look from Demir all the way to the back of the grid, and Micah Hendricks, of course, And that Audi RS3 will not have the pressure of essentially being involved in the midfield entanglements on the opening lap, but will need to come through quickly in order to gain some critical points and also set themselves up for race number 2. There's no doubt about that. But looking from the back of the field to the front of the field, it is the case there on that front row of what is Wojciech Surudic and also Matt Shepka. They make the way all the way up to the S's right now. Only a couple more corners to go, but when they do head through those corners, it will be to the privateer from Poland to take us away to the green. And immediately Surudic goes away at turn number 10. He goes on the entry and he gets a brilliant start as a result as we're away for race number 1 here. Oh, goodness me, and that's already Robert Abrams into the wall, coming out to the final corner as they head into turn number 1. Which drama early doors here at the Mosport circuit, but as that has occurred, it is the case our championship leader having a major shunt on the opening lap before he's even crossed the start-finish line to go on to lap 1. Meanwhile, Matt Shepka here under major pressure coming through turn number 2 as they head up towards turn 3. And as they roll the way through here, we can already see how Shepka, after qualifying so well, is having to really keep everyone at bay. As right now it is the case that Francois Shink behind is salivating at trying to take that P2 off him, as we hear that Robert Abrams has had to jump to the pits, and that's not the way he wanted it to start whatsoever. But as they make the way down towards Moss Corner for the first time, asking all line astern at this point, and you can see there Aaron Lahr behind, not close enough to get in the fight with John Lauzon. But as they come on through, Eric Statzer by comparison, Fernando Takahashi goes a bit deep on the brakes there, going through Moss Corner. He brings it back together, and Micah Hendricks gains a place. We see a flash of the lights there from Daniel Sedino by comparison. But as they all head down the Mario Andretti straightaway now down the back straight, in this case looking to Micah Hendricks, who's sizing up a pass here versus Daniel Sedino in the run to the S's. He looks up the inside, and of course it is the case where Delta drives, they can battle with the Alphas. It's not the case that they're going to get points in class, they get points overall, and that's all. And Mike Hendricks up the inside there into the S's, gets the move done. But after one lap, it is Wojciech Surudic who comes through the final corner to complete the first lap in the lead. 7/10 care of where's Matt Shepka there in P2, followed by Francois Shink in P3, James Carr P4, Giovanni Romano P5, Justin Rhodes P6, Logan Mckenzie P7, Jerome Bajulas P8, David Bauer P9, losing a place to Jerome Bajulas on the opening lap, John Lauzon P10, Aaron Lahr P11, Gurkin Demir P12, then we have Mike Hendricks P13, followed by Daniel Sedino P14 as he goes a bit wide and drifts out. Fernando Takahashi P15, Eric Statzer went off towards the end of that lap. He's down to P16, and then Robert Abrams in the pit lane right now. And it's a retirement for Robert Abrams on the opening lap of the race. It's disaster for the championship leader, but meanwhile, Jerome Bajulas here side by side with David Bauer. It's the case you look on the left of your picture, that's Bajulas side by side with the breakfast dinner machine as they make the way down through turn number 4. Well, it's going to get very close at Burstall here, and they both have to lift off. They've got to give one of the space, but Bajulas up the inside into Moss Corner, gets it done. But Logan Mckenzie goes over deep, and Bajulas is going to get a 2-for-1 special as they make the way out of the corner. Or is it? It's now a drag race out to Moss and down towards the S as they charge. But of course here now it will be the case that Logan Mckenzie has the initiative because he's on the outside, and that will mean he has the inside if he can hold it on the outside into turn number 9, which is the tie to the 2 corners in the chicane sequence. As you see the battle boxes here in the bottom right hand corner of your screen to help you keep track of who exactly we're watching as they make the way up towards turn number 8. And Bajulas right now, he's going to try and hold on that inside, but I think Mckenzie's got the grip there, and indeed Logan Mckenzie showing the stern stuff he's made of it. He keeps the position there and makes Bajulas have to wait his turn. Meanwhile, John Lauzon behind, making the pass on David Bauer. Oh, where's he going to? As David Bauer goes round the outside, there's contact between the two of them, and not between the two. And one old rivalry has not gone away after a week's break as they make the way down to turn 1. On to lap 3 they go, and John Lauzon there getting as good as he's giving as they make the way out of the corner and up towards turn 2. Rear of the picture, Micah Hendricks goes a little bit wide there coming out of the first corner, but keeps it together as they roll the way down through turn number 2. And well, as we look a bit up again, it is the case that Lauzon gets ahead there of David Bauer coming out to turn number 2. I think Bauer going a bit deep and having to back off, and Aaron Lahr now looking up the inside. There is the Talk Steer Racing driver, the breakfast dinner driver, as they make the way through 3 and down towards Moss Corner once more. But as they head down, look at Gurkin Demir here, finds his way on the inside of his teammate, and they've got to decide who's going to be the lead driver here, and Aaron Lahr's going to take the initiative as they make the way into Moss, and as they roll the way through the right-hander at turn 5. In this case, no change between the two of them, but I think Gurkin Demir, the Turkish driver here, is trying to say to his teammate, look, you don't get a move on, I'm going to help you get a move on by taking that place face off you, and as they make the way down the Marion Jetty straightaway once again here, here's the case. We are already seeing a break in the field with Logan Mckenzie forming the second part of the field from P7 backwards, whereas the top 6 have broken off into the distance. But race leader Sirodrich has just broken off by 2 seconds clear of the field, whereas they make the way up towards the S's this time. We look to Francois Shink here is in P2. He's found his way past Shepka, and it is the case that happened off camera. We didn't quite catch it on camera, but Shink is into P2 and trying to keep the Honda Civic Type R driver at bay in that Elantra. But the thing is, of course, he may be able to do so right now, but when we go a little bit deeper into races, we hear that Eric Statzer has had to come into the pits. He's just left the pits. It is the case that later on we may see the Elantra's tyres wear away, and that is going to give the advantage to Shepka as they head on to lap number 4. And as they roll their way down for turn number 2, this time Shepka was trying to stay as close as possible. He's got to keep in mind that he's in one of his strongest potential positions right now, that he's been in for some time in this season in P3, and if he can finish inside that top 4, it will be forming part of that reverse grid, and P3 will put P2 on the grid for the purposes of race number 2, which he'd love to have. There's no doubt about that as he makes his way down the hill. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind, I can see that Fernando Takahashi has got ahead of Micah Hendricks. He's had a major off-track at turn number 3. And in fact, we're just cutting over to Hendricks, rejoining the circuit. Eric Statzer behind us already had to come into the pit. And I do believe that Statzer is a lap down on the field. Meanwhile, we've got a driver who's gone very slowly at Moss Corner, and that is David Bauer, who went off track at turn number 5. He's rejoined, but he's lost out versus Aaron Lahr as they make the way down the straight here. Down the back straight they charge, and Aaron Lahr is continuing to gain places just through consistency and not putting a foot wrong compared to his peers around him. As they make the way up towards the S's, we look from where's Aaron Lahr to his teammate Matt Shepko, who's under pressure a little bit, albeit not under pressure right now from James Carr behind, but more under pressure to try and get back at Francois Shink at this point in time as they make the way through. James Carr, meanwhile, he's got Giovanni Romano all over his rear as they make the way through the final corner and onto another lap. As they head down to the braking zone here for turn number 1, it is the case that Giovanni Romano really close behind what is James Carr as they exit the corner. And Romano at this point, I think he feels they may have a little bit more pace in the corners, but of course he doesn't have the pace on the straights. But you see there, James Carr goes a little bit deep through turn number 2, and Romano's able to inch a bit closer here as they head up towards turn number 3, but there's no real opportunity to overtake. He's not close enough to force the move on the inside. He has to wait, but James Carr already showing some signs of a bit of pressure creeping in as we hear that Micah Hendricks has made his way into the pit lane. I'm not sure what's happened to Mike Hendricks. I think it's damage on the car. Well, in fact, no, it's the case he's just cut across the pit entry line, I think, as he makes way on through. But Giovanni Romano right now staying in the draft of James Carr as they make the way out of Moss Corner. But you can see they're braking a little bit too early for the second apex, and as a result, having to really send the car at the apex curve, but that's cost them a bit of speed as they make the way onto the back straight. But as they head on down here, it is the case rolling on through. We do look to Fernando Takahashi. He's found his way past Daniel Sedina off camera into the lead of the Delta class up to P13, and we can actually confirm that Micah Hendricks did come into the pit lane and spent a good 31 seconds and start to finish through the pit lane. As they make the way all the way out towards turn number 8 here, it is the case of Fernando Takahashi holding off Daniel Sedina right now. And whilst it's a diminished Delta field here today, still it is the case all points are for grabs in class. And as they roll the way for the right hand here, Fernando Takahashi will know that this is a major opportunity for him to get some good points over his peers in the remaining rounds of the championship as he rolls his way on through. Daniel Sedina then a bit of dirty edged understeering in turn number 9, but brings it back together at turn at number 10. As they roll the way on through and on to the next lap, we look a little bit further up the field and we can see the Logan Mckenzie here, the sole yellow flag motorsports driver on circuit in this race now, with the early retirement of Robert Abrams, who lost out literally before even starting the first lap, coming out the final corner. We're not sure what happened, to be fair, whether it was contact with another driver or was it a mistake of his own volition. I'm sure that'll be clarified by the stewards post-race, but the key point here is Logan Mckenzie right now really under pressure to perform for the team and bring some points on the board in that P7. Meanwhile, we look from him to what is Giovanni Romano, who's dropped a bit further down the order, having an off-track at turn number 4, as we're to understand. He's lost out to both James Carr and Justin Rhodes, and the two breakfasts in the drivers. They've got ahead of the privateer as they make their way down this back straight, and they're going to try and break away in that top 5 run. Meanwhile, Giovanni Romano, who was looking very strong in P4, has now got it all to do once again as he chases after Justin Rhodes. But behind him, Logan Mckenzie still under pressure as we ride on board the gearbox here of Mckenzie from Yellow Flag Motorsports. Behind him, you can see Jerome Pajulas there from Beaver Buzz Energy as they head up towards turn number 8. And into the right hand they go. And as they do, Pajulas getting closer under braking there. Logan Mckenzie being quite sensitive on the brakes by comparison, almost tiptoeing onto the brakes. And as they roll the way through turn number 9, you see Pajulas really trying to get as close as possible here. He's sizing up a move as we make our way into the second half of the sprint race. As they head out to the final corner, they head down towards turn 1. Mckenzie holds on for now, but also John Lauzon, teammate to Jerome Bajulas, not too far behind. Well, I wonder if John Lauzon and Bajulas are going to try and work a team effort here to make the way past the yellow flag Motorsports driver. But as they head down into 2, no change at the moment. We are waiting for the potential move to come, but the key thing is the battle is coming. There's no doubt about it. Aaron Lahr, meanwhile, chasing after David Bauer as he rolls his way up towards turn number 3. And it was the case that David Bauer was behind Aaron Lahr, but Lahr made a mistake, and as a result has lost the place to David Bauer as they head out to turn number 3. And as they make their way down towards Moss Corner once again, well, we must look from them to Bajulas versus John Lauzon here, and John Lauzon's getting closer and closer to his teammate, and I wonder if a swap's coming, or whether it's the case they're just trying to set up the 2-for-1 pass on Mckenzie as they make their way out of turn number 5, because every point counts for the team, and every point counts, of course, in their respective drivers' championships as well. And Lauzon is higher placed in the championship compared to Bajulas at the moment, and is right now, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, in P3 going into this round. And what that effectively means is Lauzon is their main contender outside of Francois Shink to potentially gain the points to get right back into that championship fight. But Bajulas goes defensive here versus his teammates. They make the way through turn number 8, and up to 9 they come, and this is going to give Mckenzie breathing room. And I think Mckenzie will be grateful for this. It means the gap opens up to half a second as they come to the end of what is their 7th lap around the circuit in this race, now heading on to their 8th lap. But as they roll the way on through, we've still got 5 more laps to go, also 5 more minutes to go, and approximately 3 more laps as part of that, I should say, as they roll the way on through onto another lap. As they come on around right now, we look from them to Francois Shink, the other big buzz energy driver who's clear of his teammates and is starting to break away from Shepka to an extent. The gap has opened up to 9/10 as Shepka has fallen a little bit back and is falling more and more into the clutches of what is James Carr and Justin Rhodes behind. And you can see here the 2 breakfast for dinner drivers getting closer and closer with each and every lap turned, and Giovanni Romano only 8/10 off the back of Justin Rhodes, and I would imagine that Giovanni Romano will be looking to get into this fight right at the end in the privateer machine, of course, the Team Hewitt Jazz machine, as he rolls his way out of Moss Corner. But as they do, Shepka getting a poor run there, and as they make their way down the back straight, this is the opportunity that James Carr's been waiting for as they head up towards the S's. He's within 2/10. Can he make it work? As we see Shepka defends the inside, they've still got half the straight to go, and as they head into the right hander very shortly, Carr is almost there. He's looking up the inside. Shepka's not going to respond. I think Shepka believes he can hold the outside to inside run here as he keeps the car in the middle of the road, and Shepka not feeling daunted by the fall of the Hyundai Elantra of what is their car behind as they make the way through the right hand here at turn number 10. And as they come for the right hander, we are hearing that Fernando Takahashi has had a major off track and now has released Daniel Sedino into the lead of the Delta class into P13. Unlucky for some, for Fernando Takahashi most definitely, but hopefully not for Sedino as they make the way out to turn 1 and up towards turn number 2. Not much more time left here in what is Sprint Heat 1 at the Mosport circuit, but I can tell you one thing right now, the heat is on Matt Shepka to hold on to that final spot on the overall podium as they make the way into turn number 3. And as they roll the way through the right hand here, Shepka definitely feeling the breakfast for dinner crew, putting that pressure on corner after corner, and you can see that Rhodes has got his own pressure, Giovanni Romano behind, and meanwhile Logan Mckenzie, well, he was breaking away a brief moment ago from Jerome Bajulas and John Lauzon, and now suddenly Mckenzie has got everybody from Bajulas to Aaron Lahr in P11 behind him, and Mckenzie in P7 right now must be thinking to himself, what do I have to do to break away? Well, I don't think he's going to have an option of breaking away. I think what he's got to do is just simply hold position and defend as if his life depends on it, as he makes his way out the corner and he stacks Bajulas and Lauzon on top of one another here, and it's going to be that Lauzon is going to look up the inside as it's a drag race between teammates here down the back straight. Lauzon's on the inside, Bajulas on the outside as they head up towards the S's. Now, I think Bajulas would be wise here to back it off slightly and tuck himself in, because otherwise he'll leave himself open to what is David Bauer behind us. We're hearing that Shepka has been passed by a car further up the road, and Lauzon gets the move done here as they roll the way through turns 8 and 9, but that could have been very near miss if they hadn't settled the differences before the corner. And as they roll the way on through, we look to James Carr here, who has found his way past Shepka, who grinds the wall there. Just briefly saw the sparks coming off the wall. 2 more laps to go with the time remaining, and Shepka is trying to come back as they make their way down the hill. Oh my goodness, it's contact between Shepka and Rhodes, and Shepka is given a knock, but he just about saves it. That's a brilliant bit of car control from Matt Shepka. Of course, he will not be happy at that. He's just lost multiple places. Rhodes is off the road, and Giovanni Romano is through to P4. He gains 2 for the price of 1, and all he had to do was be in the right place at the right time to capitalise on 2 drivers coming together. But you could see there Shepka was trying to go for the return move on what was James Carr, but in return he left himself open to Rhodes, putting his nose up the inside, and Rhodes saw the space. He went for it. I think Shepka would argue, well, there was no space actually there given the way that turn 2 tapers, but in the end Rhodes went for it, and that's how it all played out. But Rhodes has worked it out the least of them all in the terms of the fact he's dropped to P6 with a slightly damaged car. Meanwhile, John Lauzon here in P7, he's got the Snake train behind him, and he's leading the Snake after Logan Mckenzie. And Mckenzie there on the outside, the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver here holding the outside line. And we've seen that Logan Mckenzie does love to defend on the outside here into the S's, as of course you have the inside into turn number 9, and Lauzon's one of the later breakers as they roll the way into turn 8. The leader's gone on to the final lap, but right now these guys are battling as if they are in the lead as they roll the way through turn 9 and up into 10. But as they roll the way on through, here's the case that Swirdrich has already just gone on to that last lap and has set the fastest lap race to 25.64. But Mckenzie right now defending, the white flag is waving. They go on to one more lap in sprint heat 1. And remember, this is only our first race of 3, and already we are seeing plenty of racing action left, right and centre as they make their way into turn number 2. Behind Jerome Pajules is getting a little bit of an itch to scratch, and I think it's the case he wants that plays back from his teammate. Meanwhile, David Bowers right there, Aaron Lars a little bit further back as they roll the way into turn number 3, all in a line. But you can see Pajules getting so close to his teammate as they roll the way out of the corner. And I think he's thinking about, can I make a double move potentially down that back straight as they head up towards Moss corner here. And there's no real place for an overtake here before Moss. They've got to work their differences out under braking. You see Pajules in fact doing a bit of team play work there, defending hard, but Lauzon's gone deep, he's gone wide, and it's going to cost him 2 places as he makes his way out of the corner. Or at least 1 place to his teammate. Will it cost him 2 in the drag race versus David Bauer? We'll have to wait and see. But as they make the way on through, we do have to cut from them to the race leader, for as he makes his way through the penultimate corner, it's been a flawless run from start to finish, and on his debut he's going to take his maiden win as well. Wojciech Swirdrich comes to line, your winner in race number 1 here at Mosport by a margin of 5.8 seconds. Brilliant driving ahead of Francois Shink, who comes home P2, ahead of James Carr P3, Giovanni Romano P4, Matt Shepka will come on home P5, albeit I think irritated at what could have been Justin Rhodes P6, and then Logan Mckenzie holds on to P7 come the finish ahead of Jerome Pajules, David Bauer behind P9, John Laus on P10, pass right at the end there, Aaron Lahr P11, and then it will be Daniel Sedino who takes the win in the Delta class, P12 overall. Brilliant drives from Sedino versus Gurgen Tabir P13, Fernando Takahashi P14, and then Micah Hendricks will be last but not least on the lead lap in what will be P15 as we're hearing that Eric Satz has just completed his race, 3rd place in the Delta class, P16 overall lap down, and then Mike Hendricks will be our last driver to finish on circuit on the lead lap in P15. And what's been a difficult race for the Audi RS3 driver, but as he crosses the line there and takes his checker flag, we now get ready for race number 2, which is coming up very shortly. So as our drivers make their way to the grid once again for race 2, let's take you through the grid. And of course, this is the grid for Sprint Heat 2, another 15 minutes of racing in round 10 at Mosport in the ATC Season 5. It will be Wojciech Swirdrich who starts. Well, in fact, that is not correct there. It is the case our timing tower is incorrect, and therefore it is the case we will see our P4 finisher start on what will be pole, and our P4 finisher, if my memory serves me correctly, was Giovanni Romano, so he will have the pleasure of being on pole position, and then we will have Swirdrich who starts in at P4. We can't bring you that grid due to the limitations of a replay file, but it is the case that our grid starts to form here. It's not going to be too much change. The top 4 inverted, otherwise they will start as they were in their finishing positions in race number 2. And as we are waiting for that grid to form, a couple of things to reflect on in race number 1. We saw the potential for battling through and through. We also saw the fact that when 2 drivers go side by side through corners, they both want to back off, as otherwise they will lose on out. And indeed, and now we do wait to see how it all goes down as our drivers get ready to pull away behind the pace car, and it will be Giovanni Romano who takes the field around for the formation lap, and when he comes around next time he'll be taking us to the green. But as he pulls off there in the Honda Civic Type R, it is the case that we are hearing that Robert Abrams has not made it to the grid for this race. Well, not so far, so if he's going to be starting, he'll be starting from the pit lane. Aaron Lai is going to be starting from the pit lane. We've just had that confirmed, so therefore we will only have 15 drivers on what is the starting grid technically, and then everybody else will be starting from the pit lane. No signs of Michael McLeod or Joe Camilleri starting this race currently, as we're to understand it, so a little bit of disappointment there. We'd love to have seen them in race number 2, but they're still having technical issues with their cars. We believe that is the case, but as I try to make the way on around here on this second formation lap here, we can see how with all the battling that has occurred, a number of drivers will feel as though they're a little bit out of position, and none more so than Shepka, who I think would have felt that he would have finished P3 in race number 1 if it were not for that contact between himself and Justin Rhodes at turn number 2. He'll be starting as a result in P5 rather than P2, but to be fair, the Talk Steer Racing driver, he knows deep down, I think, that he has got the pace to be right up there on the podium come the end of this race, and now he just needs to demonstrate he's got to get his head down. I'm sure he will already be going through the mental process of forgetting about how race 1 played out, focusing on race number 2 and getting himself set once again as he comes on through the corners here, but as he rolls his way through, boss, indeed right at about Eric Statzer. Started off very strong in race number 1, and it went horribly wrong in the run round the opening sets of corners. Made his way back into the lead, only to fall down and end up a lap down, but hopefully this time he won't have those mistakes. He'll learn from the previous mistakes and get himself set to potentially take the fight to Daniel Sedino and Fernando Takahashi as our drivers make the way down the back straight. And as we go from riding on board with Eric Statzer in the 789 car to looking to our drivers right towards the front of the field, we can see James Carr and Giovanni Romano now bringing the field up to the S's. They'll let the safety car go very shortly, and when they do, it'll be to Giovanni Romano to take us to the green for another 15 minutes of racing action here at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park circuit, located in Ontario, the province of Ontario, near the Bowmanville town, as they roll their way through the final couple of corners and we wait to go racing. Romano's gone late, but here he goes. He takes us to the green and we're away once again. It's the case, green flag waving, and as they roll the way down to turn 1, he's gone late, and this is going to work out. We've got contact there with free wide. Mike Hendricks on the inside into turn 1, and Hendricks gaining ground very quickly indeed, as he's up to P11 already. Now as they make the way down to turn number 2 here, Giovanni Romano going late has caused the field to bunch up, and Romano trying to capitalise on the scramble, and you can see already James Carr to go defensive into 3, I should say, as they roll away for the right-hander, and Francois Shink holding around the outside here versus Surudrich as they make the way down towards turn number 5, but beyond that outside line with cold tyres, he's lost the place, and the Polishman comes on through as they make the way up towards Moss Corner, but as they head into the braking zone here, everybody knows to tell at the moment, and as they roll away through the right-hand, you can see Logan Mckenzie up the inside there of just, what is it, David Bauer, I should say, Justin Rhodes just ahead of him, but Logan Mckenzie gaining the place of a David Bauer as they now head down the back straight in the long snake train here, but you can already see how Shepka falling a little bit off at the top 4 here, and I think focusing more on consolidating his initial position rather than putting the pressure on early. But Gurkin Demir gaining places as well at the start, already up 2 places, and now making his way in P9 in the pursuit of David Bauer as they head up into the S's. He's going to look up the inside here, no way through, but meanwhile Mike Hendricks has been sent to the wall, and I believe that was John Lauzon who gave him a tap on the back, and Mike Hendricks in a major whack there. Meanwhile, well, Gurkin Demir's out of position. He went off circuit, off camera at the S's. He's battling side by side here with what is, I believe that's Jerome Bajulaz, but as they make the way out of the corner here, it has all been shaken up and it's not quite stirred yet as they make the way down through turn 1, and Logan Mckenzie side by side with Dave Bowers. They come through 1 and up towards 2, and well, we thought it was elbows out in race number 1, well, this sprint heat 2, elbows out of plenty more as they make the way on down the round, but I think we're finally seeing a little bit of calm before the next storm. But after 1.5 laps almost now, it is Giovanni Romano who leads the field on a round on lap number 2, ahead of James Carr in P2, followed by Wojciech Surudrich in P3, Francois Shink in P4, followed by Matt Shepka P5, there's Justin Rhodes P6, Logan Mckenzie P7, David Bauer P8, John Lauzon P9, Jerome Vigilaz P10, Fernando Takahashi P11, battling side by side here with Gurkin Demir in the run down the hill to Moss as they make the way into the hairpin, and as they do, Fernando Takahashi still on the inside here, battling with Demir for P11, but Gurkin Demir gets it done in the end. He jumps up to P11. Fernando Takahashi, P12 overall. He is your Delta leader ahead of Eric Statson, followed by Daniel Sedino, P14, and then Aaron Lahr in the pit lane. I in fact believe 2 laps down, given that he started. In fact, it'll be a lap down, given he started from the pit lane, although I don't think that's right. I think he's actually on the lead lap, and that is a technical error on our timing tower. In this case, Aaron Lahr in P15, and then we have Micah Hendricks in P16 at the moment. But meanwhile, Giovanni Romano here trying to hold on to the lead versus James Carr as they make their way through the final couple of corners to complete lap number 2. And you can see how James Carr all over the back of the Honda Civic driver as the Elantra driver looks up the inside here into turn 1. He's going to be brave on the brakes, but that's one thing Romano knows all about as they make their way through turn 1. And as they do side by side on corner exit, heading up towards turn 2. But Romano's going to have the inside here, and to be fair to James Carr, if he can hang this all the way around the outside, that is going to require a lot of commitment and also trust in Romano. Romano could edge him out as they make their way up towards 3. And well, it's the case that it is one of those cases where James Carr decides to back out and then set himself up for later on as we run on board the gearbox here of the race leader. As they make their way out of turn 3 and all the way down towards turn 5 in the long charge in. They've only got 15 minutes, of course, so you can imagine that James Carr really wants to get this done nice and early and into Moss corner. Romano goes a little bit deep there, but not too deep, and he just about brings the car around through the corner, but he's got James Carr right there. And if we needed any more proof that James Carr is close, we don't need it any more than that, as we've got the big chunky grille of where's the Elantra right in the face of the camera. But as they make their way down this back straight, Romano brings the car over to the inside. He's not going to let that inside line go. Understandably, he does not want to lose this. And as they make their way up towards the S's here, it's a long run. James Carr switches to the inside at the last minute, but Romano outbrakes Carr once again. And it is the case behind the pack follows through here. And Romano right now showing that he has got the craft with regards to those brakes. He just knows to go a little bit deeper compared to everyone else. As meanwhile, Shink's up the inside here of what is Hendricks as they make their way out to the final corner. He can't quite find it. However, Shepka's right there now, and Shepka is back up into the fight for the top 4 and indeed the lead of this race as they make their way on to another lap. But as they make their way through turn number 1 here, you can see the top 6 has broken away from the rest of the field as they head into turn number 2 once again. And it's not just about them, as we're hearing that Eric Statz has had an off track and he is rejoined. But meanwhile, James Carr has gone a little bit deep there coming out to turn 2, and as he rolls his way to 3 now, he's the one who's got to go on the defensive here as we ride on board with the Davidson here at Swidridge as they make their way out to 3 and down towards Moss corner once again. And keep in mind, of course, he has got Francois Shink behind him, and Francois Shink is absolutely itching to make moves on Swidridge for the simple reason, with Robert Abrams not taking to the grid for this second race and not getting any major points in race number 1, it is a huge opportunity for Shink to get even more points and close the distance with drop rounds in potential effect. But as they make their way all the way out towards the S's now, Swidridge is in the draft here. Can he get this done? Keeping in mind, of course, James Carr's in the draft with the Honda in front as well. Romano, Swidridge is right there. He taps what is the breakfast in the driver on the back before looking around the left hand side, but Carr covers him off and Swidridge looks the inside potentially. No, he stays where he is right now, knowing that Shink could also make the dive into the corner and waits his turn. Of course, it's the case he's got to go on the offensive but also do a defense at the same time. It's a case of a rock and a hard place. And when you're in one of these situations, it's sometimes better just to stay where you are and wait to see whether the driver behind falls off the battle for the lead as you make your way deeper and deeper into the race. But as they roll the way into turn 1 once again here, it is the case right now. Our P3 driver is the fastest man on circuit by a small margin. He is trying to unleash that pace, but the pack in front and the pack behind are not going to let him have it all his own way. Meanwhile, further back here in the battle for P7, this second pack, you can see that David Bow trying to get his nose on the inside into turn 2. They get Logan Mckenzie to open the steering, but Mckenzie not falling for it as they make the way into turn 3. But David Bow comes back to the inside. He's on the apex curve, and as they roll the way through Quebec corner here, it's going to be a case. It's going to be side by side out to the corner, but Mckenzie carries the momentum. And as they make the way up towards Moss, we've got a bit further back Daniel Sedino getting ahead of Fernando Takahashi, who's had an off track, just coming out of turn number 3. And as a result, Eric Statz is now under pressure from Daniel Sedino for the lead of the Delta class in the battle for P12. You can see Sedino getting closer and closer as that's Micah Hendricks off circuit there at what is Moss corner and jumping back to the pits after damage picked up a whack to the tyre wall. But we must look from these guys to the battle here for P2, and James Carr having to defend this time, as in this case Swidridge is trying to go around the outside. And as they head into turn number 8 into the S's here, it's a bit of contact between the two drivers, but they've both been able to hold hold it together, but as they head into 9, Srudic is there, and there's no doubt about it. The Polishman is trying to make the move, but as he goes into 10, he's still on the outside, and that means that Francois Shink comes on through, and Shink is going to strike when the time is right. Can he make it a 2 for 1 into turn 1? He can't, but he can get it into P3, and as they roll the way out of the corner here, will Francois Shink being the opportunist, we see that Srudic goes wide, he rejoins, and Shepka's up into P4, but how long, however, as he makes his way into turn 2, and he goes a little bit deep. I think there's a bit of contact there with Rhodes as well, and indeed his rival from race 1 at the corner with the two came together, and Shepka drops back to P5. That Srudic is given an opportunity to regain P4, and he'll be grateful for that. That could have been far, far worse than for Shepka. He'll be ruining what could have been as they make the way out of turn 3 and down towards Moss Corner once again. We've only just cleared the halfway point of this second sprint heat. We've still got plenty of time to go, 7.5 minutes to be precise, plus the final lap, and as they make the way out of Moss Corner right now, things are only intensifying here, as you can see that James Carr right now in a huge scramble to hold on to that P2, and Giovanni Romano is just running off into the distance with it as they make the way down the back straight once again. Now, of course, James Carr's had to defend a lot from Srudic, but he's not had Shink to defend from, and Shink already getting a nose ahead right now as they head up towards what is the S's here. He's on the outside, is Shink on the picture here. He's on the right as they make the way into the corner, and as they roll the way through, James Carr knows on the outside for turn 9. He's got his nose ahead, but as they roll the way to the corner, can he keep the car there side by side? So he's got the move into whites at 10. No, he can't, and Shink gets ahead, and Francois Shink jumps up into P2. Giovanni Romano sets the fastest lap of the race at 26.328, and to be fair, everyone else behind is a second slower, and it's not because they can't do the pace of the race leader, but they're fighting so hard for P2 that they're losing pace to the leader as they make the way into the next lap. But now that Shink's ahead, I would imagine the Beaver Buzz Energy driver is going to have a buzz of energy behind him and trying to close up to the leader with the time remaining. But has Romano been given enough space? And if Romano doesn't make a mistake, I think that 2.5 second lead he's got is more than enough to keep him comfortable at the front of the field as they make the way on around. But at any point, this could really expand once again in terms of his battling for P2, because you can see that James Carr is not done here. He is not giving this up. He's not happy about the fact he's lost the position, and as they make the way through Moss Corner here, Srudic is also planning and waiting here to see how they potentially knock one over around, because we believe that the number 80 driver has got the pace on the rest of these drivers based on qualifying. But the problem is, if he gets into this fight too soon, he may end up falling backwards towards Shepka and Rhodes and losing places. But he's going to look around the outside here. He feels as though in the double toe he's gained enough speed to look for the move as they head up towards the S's this time around, and as they head into the braking zone here, well, Srudic is going to go round 1. Is he going to make it 2 as he heads through? He's on the outside of Shink, and he gets the inside of turn number 9, and Shink is made to go on the outside of 9. Now he's going to hold the inside here versus what is Carr as they head into White's corner at 10, and Shink holds on to P3, but Srudic there goes through with 2 places gained, and well, I don't think anyone else has got a response to me. Or Justin Rhodes takes a look up the inside versus Shepka into 1, but he's on the high apex curve there, and the car's a bit unsettled, but Shepka holds firm as Rhodes has to back out briefly as they make the way into turn number 2. And Srudic there making 2 places through the sequence of the S's, a brilliant move, and he could be the driver to take the fight to Giovanni Romano with 5 minutes left on the clock. In fact, 4.5 minutes as I double check my watch, and as they make the way through turn number 3 right now, I think things will briefly settle down until the very end of this race, although I say that, and here comes up Francois Shink here under a lot of pressure from James Carr as they head up towards Moss Corner. As they roll the way through the right-hand hairpin, here it is the case. You can see Shepka also in this fight as we ride on board with Matt Shepka from Torque Steer Racing, the American driver in the 490 machine, where he'll be hoping that these two battle one another around enough to be able to take both of the places without issue. But as they bring themselves up to speed here, heading up towards top gear, going in 5th gear, you can see how Carr already trying to get himself ahead. Feels like he's got the overspeed, and Shepka places his bets behind one of the drives. Who's he going to be? Well, it's going to be the case he places his bets behind what is Shink there as they head into the corner, and as they make the way into the S's here, it'll be the right into left, and Shepka backs out. But meanwhile, Carr on the outside to inside here versus Shink. He's going to get the move done, and James Carr back up into P3 for now, but Shink, to be fair, will come back on the next lap. There's no doubt about it as they roll the way on out and head to the line. But as they make the way down into the braking zone for turn 1, a bit further back, we're hearing that Gurkin Demir's had a major lock up into turn 9, and he's lost out in the battle for P12 versus where Eric Statz. And we can see Daniel Selina trying to come through here for Blue Flag Motorsports as they head into into turn number 1 as they roll the way down the hill. Sedino on the apex curve there, but he's had to back off, taking a bit too much momentum onto that curve. Indeed, doesn't want to understeer wide into the path of Gurkan Demir, and he backs off in the end and falls behind. Meanwhile, Eric Statzer is in P12 right now. He has been passed by Aaron Lahr for P11, but Aaron Lahr is not creeping away, and Eric Statzer really getting fighty as they make the way into turn number 3. And indeed, the Delta leader right now wants some more points in that overall points table as they make the way out of the corner. But as they head down towards Moss, at the moment it does look as though Aaron Lahr is feeling a bit more comfortable. Now they're both clear of one another, but as they make the way down the hill, we look from them to P7, and this is Logan Mckenzie. And the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver for a sizable period of time has been holding on to this P7 versus Dave Batch. Well, the battles that's gone slightly under the radar, and well, Dave Batch broke away from John Lazon and Jerome Radulas behind. The two Bivos Energy drivers were in this fight early on, but they've just not been able to stay close enough to it. And as Logan Mckenzie tries to hold on to that P7, I think Dave Batch is trying to see where there's a weakness in the armour of the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver as they roll the way through the corners and head up towards the final corner here of what will be a couple more times to go. And as they make the way through turn number 10, we've got 2 more laps on the count here with 2 minutes left on the clock. And Logan Mckenzie really having to do the mammoth job of holding David Bauer behind. He's hungry as David Bauer. He's had his breakfast for dinner, but he also wants his points on the table. And as they make the way out of 1 and up towards 2, he's not close enough to force a move at the moment. But meanwhile, speaking of trying to force moves, we look to Giovanni Romano, who leads by 1.2 seconds here ahead of Wojciech Surudrich as they make the way through turn number 3. And as they do, well, I can tell you that right now it is the case that the privateer is charging fast. That last lap, he took almost a whole second out of the race leader, and he is gaining fast. I think he's going to be looking for the move on the final lap here because he is showing no signs of abating or slowing down. If anything, he's only going faster, and that fastest lap of 25.76, that is almost a second faster than what anyone's been able to achieve today in race conditions. And right now, the number 80 car is absolutely flying in the capable hands of Surudrich as he heads down the back straight, and he is well in the draft. But as they make the way up towards turn number 8, we do look to Shepka here, who chasing after Francois Shink. He's trying to find his way past the Bivas Energy driver, but he's running out of time a day in order to do so in Sprint Heat 2 as they make the way into the S's for the penultimate time. But I imagine he's probably looking right now and thinking, where can he get Francois Shink? And it is the case that Shink not looking as comfortable through the S's anymore, but Shepka's just not close enough to pounce on corner exit. It's all going to come down to the final lap, and as they make the way down to turn number 1, we look from them to Eric Statzer here, who's chasing after Aaron Lahr. He's broken away from Gurkan Demir and Daniel Sedino, and is now trying to hunt down that P11 position right at the finish as the white flag waves. 1 more lap, and Statzer's looking up the inside into turn 1. And as they make the way through, Aaron Lahr on the outside here, they roll the way through. We're hearing the Shepka's hit the wall at turn number 2. We've got a bit of dust up in the air, in fact, and I think multiple drivers are coming to contact. Not sure what's happened, but meanwhile, Aaron Lahr's off circuit there, and as Aaron Lahr goes wide, talks to race and are cursed at turn number 2, it would seem, and Gurkan Demir comes on through. Meanwhile, we look here to Logan Mckenzie, who makes his way back past what is John Lauzon, but something has happened in the fact that well, John Lauzon's had an off track there. But meanwhile, we must look to our leaders here as they head down the back straight, and we'll try and find out what exactly happened moments ago with regards to Shepka. I do believe there was contact between Shepka and potentially Rhodes at turn 2, much like what happened on what was race number 1, although we can't confirm that. But Giovanni Romano here battling with Surudrich as they head down towards turn number 8. Surudrich on the outside, Romano on the inside here into the S's. They roll the way on through, and as they come through here, Surudrich is going to have the inside into 9, but Giovanni Romano says no, he's not backing out here. He's fought for this all the way through. Through the final corner they come. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Will it be Romano or Surudrich? It's going to be a very close finish, and in the end, it is Romano who takes the win by 14 thousandths of a second ahead of Surudrich in P2, James Carr P3, Francois Shink P4, Justin Rhodes P5, David Bauer P6, Jerome Radulas P7, Logan Mckenzie P8, John Lauzon P9, Eric Statzer comes on home to take the Delta win in P10 overall, Gurkan Demir P11, Aaron Lahr P12, Daniel Sedino P13, Fernando Takashi P14, and that is your finishing positions for race number 2 on the lead lap. But let's just confirm those finishing positions whilst we are in the warm-up for the purposes of the build-up to our final race of today. As we do take a look at those results then from what was race number 2, Giovanni Romano in the end taking that win as it's confirmed by only 100th ahead of what was Wojciech Surdujic, and then James Carr being on the final step of the overall podium there in P3. Francois Shink P4 ahead of Justin Rhodes P5, David Bauer P6, Jerome Gilles P7, Logan Mckenzie P8, John Lauzon P9, and Eric Statzer there P10. A great drive there from the Delta class driver, taking the win in the Delta class, of course. Gokhan Demir P11, a difficult race for him, much like Aaron Lyon P12, losing out right at the end. Fernando Takahashi P13, Daniel Sedino P14, and then finishing a lap down Matt Shepka after that instant on the final lap at what was turn number 2. Micah Hendricks P16, retiring 4 laps from the finish, I should say. And then Robert Abrams and Michael McLeod not taking to the grid for what was race number 2. And indeed also Joe Camilleri there not taken to the grid and classified as P19. But what a race number 2 was, and indeed we have still got plenty more to come here at the Mosport circuit. We are currently in the warm-up, the brief 10-minute break before we go racing once more, ladies and gentlemen. And whilst we are waiting, we are going to take a brief break of our own, but we will be back in approximately 2 to 3 minutes for the build-up to the sprint feature race. The 30-minute race, don't go anywhere. You definitely will not want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as we return then with 3 minutes to go before we go racing for the final time today at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. I don't know about you, but we just needed a brief breather in the commentary booth with regards to the fact that it was absolutely intense there right at the end of Sprint Heat 2, in the fact that we saw right down to line a photo finish almost between Giovanni Romano and Wojciech Surdujic, and on top of that as well, the battling in the rest of the places inside the top 10 intensified further further and further all the way to the finish, and really carried on from where we left off after sprint heat 1. And the key things we can take away: overtaking is definitely possible here at the Mosport circuit, but on top of that, going for the overtake at the right time is so critical. You pick the wrong time and you could lose multiple places, particularly when you're racing in a pack. And in return, it is the case that our drivers have to play the tactical game all the way through. And one driver who really was on the receiving and the beneficiary end of that in multiple cases, James Kyle, we seen going a little bit wide there at Moss Corner. But on top of that as well, we have seen that whilst the Honda Civic does not have necessarily the straight line speed of all the other cars, it definitely does work well for these high speed corners and carries a lot of momentum from corner to corner. And Eric Stats has shown that with the win in race number 2 for the Delta class, but indeed that P10 overall, as he makes his way on down the back straight here. And also Giovanni Romano just holding on to take that win in race number 2 overall and in the Alpha class. But with 1.5 minutes left, it is the case that we've also had some major surprises, and in particular Robert Abrams not making it to the grid for race number 2, and also having his race end prematurely in race number 1 with that instant coming out to the final corner before we got to the green flag. But whilst we did go racing early there, indeed with a rolling start, a bit of a difference for today. In this case, going for a rolling start, let's get everybody underway in the run to turn number 1, being such a short and tight run into the opening corner. It is the case that rolling start procedure has caught some drivers out, and it has also led to some drivers benefiting. Giovanni Romano decided to go very late on race number 2, whereas it was the case that Sirodic decided to go very early in the run through turn 9 to 10 in race number 1, and we'll have to wait and see who is going to go when in race number 3 very shortly. But that top 8 inverse grid, of course, will mean that we will have a different driver on pole for the purposes of the sprint feature, the 30-minute race. And of course, with the time duration being double, you could imagine tyre wear will become a much more prominent factor, and in particular our Elantra drivers may just become unstuck a little bit, the likes of Logan Mckenzie, for example, with the fact that Elantra does wear down its tyres a little bit more aggressively than most as they make their way around here with just a little bit more time to go. But indeed, if you're tuning in, I can see a couple of you tuning in there. It's a little bit silent in the chat, but to be fair, silence is sometimes golden. But I hope it is the case you've been enjoying the story so far, and we've still got one more race to go here. And indeed, probably still plenty of drama and action to come. So the checker flag is out on this final warm-up session and the break session, and now it's time for us to form the grid for our final race of today. So as the grid is formed for the final time here, whilst we can't walk you down through the grid due to limitations of our technical equipment here, it is the case we can see the grid starting to be formed, and well, with the case our Delta drivers will all be starting on the grid as per their finishing positions from what was race number 2, none of them finishing inside the top 8. We will definitely see a shake-up inside the top 8, and we can see Jerome Magellas here starting a bit further towards the front, Logan Mckenzie as well up towards the front. I do believe they're our front row, in fact, and it will be Logan Mckenzie who starts on pole as they get underway. But then the big question will be for Giovanni Romano starting in what will be a P8 there, or is it Sirodic in fact who starts in P8? I'm not sure. I think actually Sirodic may have been classified as the winner in race number 2, given he's starting on that inside line. We'll have to wait for confirmation, but I swear it was Romano who took the win there by the smallest of margins. In fact, I do think the leader starts on the outside in turn 1 here at Mosport, now that I've refreshed my memory. But as they look to get underway very shortly, the gridding process is complete, and it will be Mckenzie and Magellas who take us away for the formation lap as we get ready to go racing for the third and final time today. Robert Abrams not taking to the grid, nor Michael McLeod or Joe Camilleri, but we do have 16 drivers out of 19 in attendance taking to the grid for the final 30-minute race at Mosport. And as they make their way down the run, it is Logan Mckenzie who leads the field away for the final time tonight as he heads down through turn number 1 behind the pace car. Indeed, everybody right now we're looking to get those tyres nicely warmed up because they'll look to get the best possible start. And I suspect if we do not see drivers break away early on, we could have some huge battles through the whole duration. As we look to the blimp camera here, all the field coming through, all in the single camera shot. They're absolutely fantastic to see in all the different team and privateer colours. It is the case, whilst we've had a reduced field compared to our usual number, particularly in the Delta class, whilst we've lacked the quantity today, we've by no doubt had a lack of quality. Indeed, the quality has been at the maximum and really has embodied what the Alpha Touring Challenge is all about in terms of close racing action in the touring car racing class machinery, and indeed a few elbows coming out, a few knocks and scrapes here and there. But it is a case of all our drivers enjoying the racing, and as they make the way down, Micah Hendricks once again finds himself starting from the back of the field after not putting a lap in qualifying, having a good race one, race number two not going the way he wanted it to, and he's got it all to do again once more, starting from the back here in race number 3, the sprint feature. But as our drivers make the way on around now, heading down the back straight, it is the case that Logan Mckenzie gets our drivers set for peeling away from the safety car, and then as they make the way over through the S's, it will be to Mckenzie with Bajaz alongside to take us away for 30 minutes of racing action. Who is going to be the winner come the end of it? We've had two different winners today. Of course, race number 1 winner was Wojciech Surudrich, and he'll be starting from what will be P7 there. And then our winner in race number 2 was Giovanni Romano, who will be starting in P8. They will be fighting their way into turn number 1, there's no doubt about it. Can they put the differences aside to potentially fight their way up through the order and then battle for the overall win? Or will it be the case that the likes of Mckenzie and Bajaz will be given a clear break? Well, all that and more is about to be found out as they head through the final corners and we wait for the green. They make the way out the final corner. Logan Mckenzie goes. It's green flag and we'll wait for the final racer today at Mosport. And as they charge into turn number 1, Mckenzie gets a brilliant start. He breaks the field open. And meanwhile, Romano's under pressure here from John Lauzon, who looks up the inside as they roll the way in through. Surudrich has gained a place already. He's up to P6. And as they make the way into turn number 2, Romano holds off Lauzon on the inside there into turn number 2. But meanwhile, further back, Aaron Law, they're battling with Fernando Takahashi. As we hear, that is the case that Mike Hendricks has found his way past Daniel Sedino. In fact, no, he's not, as we look back to them. But Aaron are battling for position here with Takahashi up the inside into turn number 3. Can't make it count. But meanwhile, a bit further back here we see Jerome Bajula's P2, Francois Shink P3, and Shink's got pressure from David Bauer as they head down the hill and up towards Boss Corner for the first time. Arskin and James Carr and Justin Rhodes there, the two breakfast for dinner teammates side by side into Moss Corner, and in the end James Carr backs out versus Rhodes as they make the way out to the hairpin and now down the back straight. But as they charge on down, you can see Romano was they gained the place at the start, he's now lost it again. Indeed, finds John Lauzon hot on his heels as they make the way down towards the S's for the first time of Arskin. As they charge on down here, we can see also that Eric Statz a little bit further back, looking to go on the offensive versus Gurkin Demir for P10 overall. He is leading the Delta class right now as they make the way up towards the corner, but no way through. But meanwhile, we can see Giovanni Romano continues to go defensive from John Lauzon, who is becoming a very early thorn in this side, and this is not what he wants, as indeed it will mean he starts to fall off of the lead pack as they come to the end of lap number 1. So after one lap, it is Logan Mckenzie who leads ahead of Jerome Bajaz in P2, Francois Shink in P3, David Bauer P4, followed by Wojciech Surudrich in P5, Justin Rhodes P6, followed by what is James Carr in P7, Giovanni Romano in P8 behind, followed by John Lauzon in P9, and then we have Gurkin Demir P10. But we look from them back up towards the front of the field here, and you can see Jerome Bajaz having to defend versus his teammate coming through turn number 2, and as they make the way out the corner here, well, David Bauer's not going to waste any time in soon two teammates become temporary enemies as they make the way into Quebec corner 3, but David Bauer's made to go all the way around the outside here. Indeed, I think Francois Shink at this point trying to act as the rear guard, but look behind the pair of them. It's the case of Surudrich here up to P5 from P7 at the start, and he is starting to bear his fangs. He makes his way in hot pursuit. Meanwhile, Carr and Rhodes once again side by side. Oh, there's contact between the two teammates there, and Giovanni Romano just says, well, I'm just going to come on through, thank you. But as he makes his way out to the hairpin here, out Moss hairpin, and now down the back straight, I don't think Romano's been able to get the exit he's wanted, and therefore James Carr is still ahead there. But James Carr getting ahead of Rhodes, but in a bit of contact between the two, and it's not the way they wanted it. Meanwhile, behind we've got 3 wide there between Lauzon, Demir and Rhodes, and as they head up towards the S's, how's this all going to plan out? Well, I hope it's not tears. I tell you now as they make the way into the corner, well, Lauzon gets ahead of the pair of them, and Rhodes is on the outside, and he's almost onto the grass. He's onto the grass, it's Justin Rhodes, and he brings it back together with Daniel Sedino having to go all the way around the outside. Well, that was very near miss stuff there from all the drivers, and Justin Rhodes continues to drop down the order like a stone, as meanwhile Shepka has had it all go wrong for him as well, and he's dropped to the back of the field. We didn't quite catch what's exactly happened to Shepka on camera, but Mike Hendricks goes round the outside of the Honda Civic driver as the Audi driver continues to charge its way up through the field. as they make the way in towards turn number 2. Daniel Sedina here on the inside of Aaron Lahr as they make the way through 2, and both drivers go deep, and Aaron Lahr onto the grass, and Daniel Sedina almost following in there in synchronisation as they head out the corner, but he just about survives it. The understeer really creeping in on the front end of that Elantra for the pair of them as they now make the way through turn number 3, and Mike Hendricks at this point is going to waste no time in trying to come on through past all of them. He's moved up to P13, gaining 2 places in a single corner, and as they make the way down towards Moss at this point, it is the case the Blue Flag Motorsports driver now waiting for the next opportunity, but as they make the way through, he's going to see it right there with the fact that Sedina goes deep, and Justin Rhodes almost follows Sedina out on circuit, and as they roll the way onto the back straight now, it's going to be Shepka versus Rhodes in the battle for P14, as it's a drag race between the Elantra and the Civic, and well, I think the Elantra's going to win it in the long haul here, but I can imagine that Shepka's not going to back out at all. Indeed, Shepka's got his nose ahead as we make our way into the second half of the straightaway, and as they head up towards the S's here, Shepka's on the inside, and I think he will have the deal done there as they roll the way into turn number 8, and Rhodes will have to back out this time as they merge their way in towards the second part of the S's at turn 9, but as they settle their differences for now, Aaron Lahr behind them by 1.7 seconds. We look from them back up to the front of the field here, and this is Logan Mckenzie still leading, but the thing for the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver at this time is the fact we've got a lot of time still on the clock, and with only less than 5 minutes, we're almost at 5 minutes into the 30 minutes here, Mckenzie cannot make a break. If anything, he's got huge pressure bearing down on him as they make the way up towards turn 3 for what is the 4th time of asking, and just there, it was the case we saw David Bowell almost losing it coming out to 2. Meanwhile, teammate James Carr's got Giovanni Romano behind him for company, and Romano is waiting for that opportunity, but meanwhile, speaking of opportunities, Francois Shink wastes no time in preventing an opportunity being seized there from Svirovic as they make the way up towards turn number 5, and as they make the way through Moss Hairpin here, you can see how Shink is caught in this horrible place whereby he's got to go defensive through pretty much every corner, because it's the case the Polish book behind it is just putting so much pressure on, and indeed Shink right now having to do everything he can in the book in order to be able to hold on to that P3. Meanwhile, further back, Micah Hendricks has found their way past Eric Statson and Daniel Sedina up into P11 as they make the way down the back straight, and Fernando Takahashi is your Delta leader in P10 in the Audi, and it is against both drivers going well here, as meanwhile Jerome Bagilas holding Shink at bay. The 2 teammates here trying to work out their differences as they make the way into turn number 9. I think trying to act as front guard and rear guard as they make the way into turn number 10, but as they roll the way through whites this time around, it is the case you can see here in the long straight the fact that all this little squabbling between the 2 of them, and with Swirdrich behind, it is the case that Logan Mckenzie is being given room to protect the tyres on that lead Elantra, and that's the thing that our Elantra drivers have got to worry about here, is the fact the tyre wear is going to be high and their pace will drop off quite significantly as the race wears on. But as they roll the way down off the hill there out to 2, got Hendricks into the wall, and that's a huge knock and grind on the wall, and Hendricks, I think that maybe his race concluded there, as it is the case he jumps to the pits, and well, it's the case it has not worked out at all today for Mike Hendricks, that is for certain, as meanwhile Fernando Takahashi, well, currently in P10, the sole Audi still out on circuit here, running comfortably in P9 now as he makes his way past David Bowell. I think David Bowell may have picked up a slowdown there after going off track as they make the way through Moss Hairpin. As they roll the way through the right-hander, Fernando Takahashi definitely bringing out all the pace in race number 3. And as he brings himself up to speed, we look back up to the front of the field here, and Jerome Bagilas once again into the S, having to go defensive versus West Francois Shink, his teammate here. And as they make the way into the braking zone, it's going to be Bagilas on the inside, and you can see here Suridic trying to also look up the inside, but no way through. As they roll the way through the right into left, it's the case that Shink holds around the outside. Oh my good lord, and Bagilas into the wall and careens across the circuit there, and will lose contact with what was, I believe, John Lauzon coming through. So it's the case that Viva Buzz team in the wars today. It's a bit of a civil war down in the paddock, I can imagine, and it is the case that, well, I'm not sure if there was major contact between the two, or it was the smallest of taps, or whether it was just the curb at turn 9, but regardless, it's the case we have lost Jerome Bagilas, who's had to be towed to the pits, and well, now Francois Shink will find himself the sole Viva Buzz Energy driver up in that top 5, and he's got all the work to do in terms of trying to hold on to that P2 and chase down the win of this race, but that is not the way you want it to ever happen is when you see your teammate around you also go off as they make the way all the way up towards what is Moss corner. But as we say hello there to Shink in the YouTube chat, they're saying that good vibes, more good vibes, potentially trying to go after that win as they make the way through turn 5 right now. But as they roll the way on through, we can see a little bit further behind them Giovanni Romano here in P5, trying to inch closer and closer as they charge down the back straight. But he's a little bit off of James Carr right now, but I think he'll be happy that the race will gradually come to him if he manages it well, given the rate of attrition and also the amount of fighting we are seeing left, right and centre here at the Mosport circuit in race number 3, and we're not even a third of the way through yet, and we have already seen some huge race deciding moments. But as they make the way up towards the S's this time, the top 5 only separated by 3 seconds from 5th to 1st. It is the case it could all kick off again very shortly. Speaking of things kicking off, Fernando Takahashi being passed around the outside there by David Bauer as they make the way through turn 8 into 9, and as they roll the way through the left-hander, it is the case of Fernando Takahashi holding firm as he's got Shepka behind him. But as they roll the way out into another lap here, Shepka trying to come on through to recover his race, but as they roll the way into turn number 1, he can't quite get close enough to look up the inside, but he's definitely contemplating a move very soon as they head up towards turn number 2. As they roll into left-hander, here it is the case that Shepka stays sucked in, but Takahashi goes a bit deep. The car's onto the grass, and Fernando Takahashi loses the rear of the car and just manages to bring it back off circuit in order to avoid contact with Statzer and Rhodes, who are battling for right now P10 as a result, and Eric Statzer takes the lead to the Delta class here. But the thing for him is the fact that he's got Rhodes all over the back of him. Meanwhile, we have to briefly cut away from them back up to the front of the field because we can see a traffic jam forming, and it's Logan Mckenzie. We ride on board the gearbox here. The yellow flag motorsports driver has not broken away from Francois Shink through to reach all car, and as they make the way down the back straight here, where you can see already Mckenzie putting the car on the outside for the run to the S's, and Shink trying to get on through. But here comes through and he's going to look for the move on the pair of them as they head up towards the S's here. Is it going to be 3 wide? Well, there's the space in the middle, but I don't think that Swedish wants to go for the Moses manoeuvre here, and as they make the way for the right, and there's contact with Logan Mckenzie and Francois Shink. It's a tiny tap, but it almost sends Mckenzie round, but Mckenzie catches the car. Then Shink backs up and Swedish gets around the outside of Shink, or does he as they come out the corner? 10 minutes clear, 20 to go, and as they make the way down towards turn 1 this time, Swedish is up into P2, and now Francois Shink has got James Carr for company as they head through turn 1 once again. Giovanni Romano in P5 watches on here. He's got popcorn in that driver's seat, I would imagine, and he's watching this and thinking, excellent, just keep knocking one another about. I'll pick up the place as time goes on. But as they make the way down the hill through turn 2 and up towards 3, it is the case this long train of 5 cars for the lead of the race. It's gradually being caught up to by John Lauzon here. Lauzon, of course, in that contact with his teammate Pajulas earlier on. It is the case that right now just trying to close up to the top 5 and make it a 6-way battle for the win of the race, and it is well within arm's reach as he makes his way out to turn number 3. But as they head on through here, it is the case that at any moment it could all kick off again, and Logan Mckenzie now does not have Shink as his main target rival behind. Is the case, it's Suridic instead, and the one thing we do know about Suridic is he does seem to have just this knack for finding that extra bit of pace lap on lap versus everybody else, and within 1.5 tenths right now, Logan Mckenzie's got to be ready for this. He's going to defend on the inside here. Is he going to hold the middle of the road and just compress Suridic to the inside? Well, neither. It's the fact that Suridic instead opens up the corner for himself here, and as they make the way into the S's, well, Mckenzie leaves the door open and Suridic makes his way on through here, and I think Mckenzie's more focused on that P2 at this time and trying to keep the rest of the field at bay, given that Davidson does not have that many points in the championship, and therefore Mckenzie does not arguably need to hold him at bay because it's not going to be a major impact to his championship credentials compared to if Shink comes on through by comparison as they make the way on to another lap. But Sturgis comes on through, so it's the fastest lap at 26.19 in the process, and now I would imagine that Mckenzie's going to be looking more and more in his rearview mirror to Francois Shink behind as Shink tries to come through here, given the fact that with Robert Abrams not taken to the grid for race number 3, Shink right now, if he's able to pull off a P2, this will help him close up ever more in the championship and get him so close that he'll almost be there in terms of trying to take that championship lead going into the next round at Mid-Ohio. But we'll have to wait and see whether Shink can come on through here or whether Abrams' teammate Mckenzie is able to keep the Beaver Buzz Energy driver at bay as they make the way into Moss Hairpin once again. But right now Mckenzie working it very hard indeed, bumping on apex down as they roll the way out to the hairpin. You see Carl and Giovanni Romano right there as well as they head down the back straight. But as they charge them down, we look from Ninja Shepko who's trying to look for the move here on David Bauer for P8. as they head down the back straight themselves and chase after Gurkan Demir, who's only 1 second up the road from the pair of them. But as they head up towards turn number 8, we look back up to our drivers who are about to make the way into aforementioned turn 8, and it is the case that Shink right now all on the back of Mckenzie here, but no change under braking this time around. They all run line astern through the S's and wait their turn as they come to the end of this lap. Through whites they go and on to the next lap. Now, whilst all this has been happening, I can tell you it is the case that further down the order we do still have Eric Statzer in P11 leading the Delta class. In this case, Fernando Takahashi is in P13 and Daniel Dino P14 out of our 3 Deltas out on circuit today, and that's how they currently run. But as they make the way on around right now, this battle for the top 5 only building up more and more to the ultimate crescendo as we look to John Lauzon behind here, who is continuing to creep a little bit closer lap on lap. In his case, taking a couple attempts out of them, and he will be there within the next 4 to 5 laps in order to get himself into that fight. But of course, running damage on the car after that knock with Bajulas at turns 8 to 9 earlier on in the race, and that no doubt will be compromising a bit of speed on the car. Meanwhile, further behind, we can see here it is the case that Gurkan Demir under pressure from David Bauer as they make the way down through 4 and up towards 5. But meanwhile, we have to look away because there's a driver off circuit, and that's Logan Mckenzie there at Moss. Now, we're not sure if there's been contact. That's not Mckenzie wide, but it is the case the outcomes. Mckenzie's had an off track at turn 5, and he's released the rest of the field on through. Meanwhile, behind, Fernando Takahashi here goes into the lead of the Delta class. Eric Statzer off circuit in the run to turn 5. Well, he's had the 6 seconds off circuit. That's in the run from 4 to 5. In this case, the Statzer there, a mistake has cost him dear. But meanwhile, Shink now having to defend P2 versus what is James Carr. But James Carr going outside to inside here through the S's. And as they make the way into the final corner here, James Carr is up into P2 with all the action that's occurring. And as he comes to the timeline, it's almost the first half of the race complete. They've still got 30 seconds before they get to that halfway mark, but we've still got plenty of racing to come. Still 15 minutes plus the final lap, and anything can happen as the time continues to tick on. And as we ride on board the gearbox here of James Carr, now in P2, this is going to be a bit of an unfamiliar position for James Carr in the fact that he does have Suridic up ahead of him, 1.5 seconds up the road and trying to break away, and he's got to try and keep behind him Francois Shink here as they make the way through turn number 3, but James Carr goes a little bit deep. And as they come through Quebec corner and head up towards Moss, it is the case side by side they roll, but Shink's going to be on the outside here. They head into left-hander. James Carr's going to stick his nose in here to try and get back ahead, but Shink's not going to back out until right at the very end of the braking zone, and Giovanni Romano now tucks in behind the pair of them here. John Lauzon's only a second off of them as they exit the hairpin, and it is the case as they charge down the back straight. Romano now also looking at the prospects of making a move to be on that overall podium come at the end of the race, but time wears on here, and I think Romano at this point just hoping that the two in front disturb one another a little bit more before he starts to make that move. For the simple reason, if he starts fighting Shink now, then it could enable James Carr to break away. Meanwhile, further behind, we can see that Shepka here making his way around the outside of Gurkan Demir in the run down the back straight. But to be fair, Shepka ahead of Demir right now and looking comfortable on pace compared to his teammate as they make the way through the turns 8 and 9. And the Talk Steer Racing drivers known for great teamwork, to be fair. And Shepka this time being given the opportunity to lead the pair as they make the way through 10 and on to the next lap. Taking a bit of grass from there, he's got to be careful of that. Doesn't want to go too wide out of 10, otherwise he'll find himself being pulled more and more towards the exit wall. But as they make the way on to the next lap, Shepka flying as they come through turn number 1 here and going hunting after David Bauer, who's just in front in P7 as they head onto what for them is lap number 12. As they roll way down the hill here, chasing is one thing, catching is another thing, and then overtaking is an entirely different thing. And it is the case that we're Shepka on the pursuit right now in the car, the Honda Civic, which is known to be the fastest car through the corners here, but it does not necessarily have the speed on the straights. Shepka's going to have to really dig deep to find his way past Bauer late on in this race. But meanwhile, with it from them to a bit further behind, we can see that Justin Rhodes now all over the back of Gurkan Demir, and Demir under pressure as Rhodes looks up the inside there into Moss corner. He can't quite find it. In fact, Shepka outbrakes himself into the corner, has to stop the car. And that's going to help Demir and the fact that he'll be able to draft with his teammate in close proximity, but it won't help out in the fact that Justin Rhodes now will have a double draft here, and with the double draft he may be able to jump ahead of the pair of them if he gets it right, or at least make the move on Demir. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword here for Demir in the fact that he'll have the draft, but if Rhodes has got a car which works well in the double draft, it could just work out, because open setups, certain amounts of rear wing being run on the car. But as they make the way into turn number 8 here, no changes in case they stay as they were as they come to the end of this lap. But we look from them to our race leader, and as they head into turn number 1 this time, it does look as though Wojciech Turudic here, whilst he's leading by 1 second, he's not breaking away at the rate we expected. And I wonder whether he's having to do a bit of tyre preservation here and trying to protect the car in the fact he doesn't want the tyres to fall off later on the race. And James Kart is trying to exploit this now to close up. But the problem for him, of course, is he's got 2 drivers behind him who don't want to protect the car. They want to get into that P2. And that is, of course, the combination of Shink and Giovanni Romano. As we hear into the pit lane has come Fernando Takahashi, which is going to drop into the back of the field. And that's unfortunate for Takahashi. Eric Statzer back into leader, the Delta class in P12, as our drivers roll the way into Moss Hairpin. This time around, no change, but we ride on board with Giovanni Romano here as he exits the hairpin, absolutely hammers the apex curve, the second apex curve of Moss, and as they make the way down the back straight, you can see out here, despite the double draft, he's not closing at the rate of knots that he'd like to. Instead, he has to watch as Shink here gets closer and closer to car, and then looks at that potential move as they head up towards the S's, and as they make the way all the way down this back straight. It seems to go on forever, and then finally the S's arrive. You can see James Carr going defensive here. Shink made to go round the outside, but he has to back off there. James Carr getting the elbows out nice and early, and as they roll the way to turn number 9, Romano just needs to stay within touching distance of this battle, because if anything should happen, he might be able to go through the pair of them. We saw that earlier on, of course, when mistakes were made and drivers came on through, and as they make their way on to the next lap, Romano right now staying very close, but just waiting for the opportunity at 9. He doesn't need to get into the fight until the time is right. 11 minutes still on the clock continues to tick down here in the sprint feature, and as they roll the way through turn number 2, you can see how Carr taking a lot more speed to the corner apex, then having to fight the car to avoid it from understeering. Meanwhile, Shink and Romano being much more conservative to protect those front tyres as they roll the way through 2 and into 3, and on the exit of the corner this time around, off in the distance there, that is Turudic. He's breaking away. He's now 1.3 seconds clear of the trio as they make the way down through 4 and into Moss Hairpin at turn 5. Onto the brakes they go, and you can see Shink in return not defending their interbox, but what's very interesting for Shink is the fact he hasn't quite got the front end grip anymore to be able to take a nice run through for, to be on the outside on the braking zone to 5, and I think Shink is now starting to show signs of those front tyres wearing down, and he's losing out to design. In fact, the James Carr's opened up the gap to 8 tenths on that run, and now as they make their way down the back straight, I think Romano's got to think about making the move here because he's losing time. He's not able to look for the move, however, into the S's here. Meanwhile, further back, David Bauer battling with Logan Mckenzie for P6. And as they head up into the S's here, McKenzie's going to do the outside, but he defends this line so well. Outside to inside returns 8 to 9. David Bauer there taking the apex curve and getting a bit unsettled as a result. And Logan Mckenzie once again making a successful defense through the S's on the outside to inside of 8 to 9. And as they make their way out to the corner here, I think Logan Mckenzie is going to say the buck stops here in the battle for P6. He'll be holding on to it all the way to the finish if he can. Meanwhile, behind, Justin Rhodes still trying to find his way past Gurkan Demir for P9 as they roll the way down through 1 and up towards 2. But as they head into the left-hander here, it is the case that Gurkan Demir really right now providing a nice bit of rear guard for Matt Shepka to go hunting after Baron McKenzie as they make the way through up towards turn number 3. And when McKenzie bows so close, as Shepka inching closer and closer with every corner turned here, Gurkan Demir really fully in the pressure right now. As we can see there, Rhodes almost gone off circuit once again, running a bit wide out of 3, and the breakfast for dinner drivers really do love trying to take so much speed through turn number 3, but each time they almost come unstuck, and I think they had to back off the throttle there. And as they roll the way up into Moss right now, it does just go to show you how hard all of our drivers are pushing in terms of when they run that wide but keep it on the circuit there. That is through sheer management of the car, and notice that they've taken too much speed at the right time. But meanwhile, speaking of the right time, is this the right time for David Bauer to look for the move on McKenzie? Well, we saw this last time around, of course. It was the case that McKenzie just simply pulled the car to the left-hand side and said, I'm just going to hold that outside line, I can defend this. And well, you can see now McKenzie being pinned on the outside there by what is David Bauer, who does not fall for that inside space. Instead, he decides to stay right behind McKenzie and look for the move later on into the S's into turn number 9, but it doesn't materialise as they roll the way on out and onto the end of this lap, and on the next one they go. But meanwhile, we look from them to the battle for P2, and you can see that James Carr is breaking away. He's got the gap to 7 tenths on average versus Shink, and Shink under that increased pressure from Giovanni Romano as they make their way through turn 2. as they roll the way down and out here. I think what the problem is now for Francois Shink is the fact that if he tries pushing any harder, he's only going to be wearing those front tyres down ever more. And I think he's taking too much out of the tyre in the early stage of this race, which you see it just does not have that confidence anymore to stay as close to car, and indeed that pace ability as they roll the way out the corner, and again the car just drifts wide a little bit and the exit of 4, and it just does not give him the ability to set the corner. But meanwhile, speaking of getting it wrong, Suriduc gets it wrong at Moss corner, goes deep and onto the gravel, and as he re-emerges on circuit, he's dropped to P3. James Carr is now your leader, and Giovanni Romano, well, how much bad luck does a man need in the fact that he literally rejoins with a faceful of with Suriduc in front, and as they make the way down the back straight, it is against the 337 driver at this point where he knows about battling with the Polishman. He does, Romano, as they make the way into turn number 8, and he knows that if he can stay with Suriduc over the course of the next couple of laps, he may find himself in the battle for the lead come the end of it. But right now, he needs to make the tactical play here, which is not to fight for P3 immediately, but instead let Suriduc open the door on Francois Shink for that P2, because otherwise it's only going to let James Carr run off into the distance and potentially take the win and make it 3 different winners in 3 races here today at the Mosport circuit. But as they make the way out of turn 1 and up towards 2, a little bit further back, I can tell you that Justin Rhodes has found his way past Kirk and Tamir here in P9, and as they roll the way on through, we see Daniel Sedino here all over the back of Eric Statzer as they come into turn 10. Statzer gets it a little bit wrong on the brake and the car getting unsettled, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1, Daniel Sedino's going to be on the inside here. This is the battle for the Delta lead. Sedino up the inside, and Statzer there, I think, waiting for a return move later on in the lap, not defending that inside line, but instead waits behind, and in fact he looks up the inside here into turn 2, but Sedino covers him off, or does this, they make the way down through the corner, and Sedino goes a bit deep, and Statzer by comparison, it just looks like the Honda Civic is on rails compared to the Hyundai Elantra, which just looks to be sliding all over the place there as if it's got baby oil on the tyres. Well, that's not the case, of course, but it's just sliding left, right and centre, and as they make the way out of turn number 3 and up towards Moss corner right now, Statzer noticing there that Daniel Sedino does seem to be on edge and trying to come on back, but meanwhile, looking from towards the back of the field to the front of the field, Francois Shink defending side to side here versus Suriduc as they head up into the S's. The Suriduc is going to go around the outside as they make the way in turn 9, and Shink taking a bit too much apex curve at 8, and the car getting unsettled, and that means he's lost the position as they head through turn number 10, and Romano once again finds himself behind the Beaver Buzz Energy driver here as they head on to another lap, and James Carr has just set the fastest lap of the race as leader of a 25.876. It definitely shows that James Carr's got the pace on his fingertips, and right now with an advantage of 1.1 seconds over Suriduc, can he hold on with just over 5 minutes left on the clock? I think it's going to be a very tall order, to be fair, as meanwhile we're hearing that Daniel Sedino's had an off track just after we cut away from his battle with Eric Statzer. Statzer back up into P12 and the lead of the Delta class. But as the top 4 roll the way through turn number 3, we look to the rest of the pack in the Alpha class who are rolling away through turn 3, and you can see Logan Mckenzie here in P5 holding off what is there John Lauzon, who briefly was passed by Logan Mckenzie, and Mckenzie has confirmed that P5 position as they head on down the hill. But Shepka behind here looking for the move versus Justin Rhodes. He can't quite find it at the moment and instead has to wait behind as they make the way into Moss corner, and as they come through the right-hander here, it is the case that Shepka just cannot get a break in terms of trying to break his way past the Elantras in front of him. They just seem to have that edge on the straight line speed, which is making the difference at this time. But of course, any mistakes that are made, and Shepka will be coming on through, there's no doubts about that, as they head up towards the S's for what is the 18th time. But as they charge on down here, we look to Mckenzie in the foreground, and he's looking comfortable here, does Mckenzie. Being that Micah Hendricks has had another instance, had to jump to the pit, and it's not a good day in the Audi RS3 for Micah Hendricks, there's no doubt about that. At the Mosport circuit, it's just not worked out in any of the 3 races. But as Logan Mckenzie rolls through what is turn at number 10 into the end of a lap, he's got a mammoth task here of keeping Lauzon at Bauer, Rhodes and Shepka behind in 4 tries, all very keen to take that P5 off of him. And right now Logan Mckenzie making that Elantra as wide as humanly possible as they make the way into turn number 2. As they roll the way downhill here in towards 3, they charge. It is the case we ride on board with David Bauer. You can see John Lauzon there taking a little bit of a look to the inside versus Mckenzie, and then switching back to the outside, only unsettling the car. And David Bauer here is going to look to exploit this immediately as it's a drag race now through into turn number 4, and David's going to be on the outside here. Will he back out? I think he has to, as Lauzon covers him off on the inside. Into Moss hairpin they go, and Lauzon there, well, he actually hooks that up at the last bottom, weren't under braking. I thought Lauzon was going to go over deep there, but surprise, surprise, it is the case. He's just carrying so much speed, and the confidence John Lauzon has on the brakes of that car as they make the way into that Moss hairpin. But it is the case that John Lauzon definitely able to show he can drive on the limit. Meanwhile, speaking of limits here, well, this is the first time that Giovanni Romano's broken the limit, which is trying to find his way past Francois Shink. He goes around the outside into the S's, and he gets it done, or does he? Shink cuts back to the outside into White's corner, and as they come round the final corner here, 2.5 minutes on the clock, Romano's not done yet. He's on the inside for one, but you can see how Shink's trying to go around the outside as they make their way through the right-hander, and as they do, Giovanni Romano gets it done. Just about as we're hearing that John Lauzon has briefly popped into the, I think John Lauzon is in the pit lane. I wonder if that's for a drive-through penalty potentially, given the fact that he's only just coming in right towards the end of the race, but Lauzon, it's all gone wrong for right at the final measure, but Giovanni Romano has made his way into P3. Meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that James Carr is not safe with 2 minutes on the clock. They'll do this lap plus one more. And right now, James Carr has got Surudic behind him. And the pressure is on for the breakfast dinner driver, who wants to make it 3 different winners in 3 races at Mosport. But can he do it? That's the big challenge. Now, my gut feeling says that James Carr knows how to make that Lancia as wide as possible here. He's shown it in previous rounds that when he's required to defend, he can be an absolute pain to pass, and if he can do that here today, it will do him very well in the championship standings going forward. But as they make their way down the back straight, Francois Shink here looking to try and go round the outside, do the Romano move back on him, and Giovanni Romano as they make their way up into turn number 8, but Francois Shink just not able to carry all the momentum around the outside, and that's the difference now, with tyre wear becoming a bigger factor in this 30-minute race. It is the case that Honda just has the grip. The Elantra does not, and as they come out of the final corner here to go on what will be the final lap of racing at Mosport, it is the case that Romano holds on to P3 and James Carr holds on to the lead. But as we ride on board here with Surudic into turn 2 they go, the P2 driver here putting on the pressure, and can James Carr withstand it? Well, Carr goes a little bit deep into 2, but he just about brings it together, but Surudic is going to be all over the back of him into turn 3, but there's no way through this time. But James Carr again overcooks it under brake, and he drifts a little bit wide here, and this could be all the opportunity that Wojciech Surudic needs as they make the way out at 3 and down towards 4 they go. But as they come past our cameraman here, it's the case that Surudic is made to go around the outside. He has to back out into the braking zone for Moss corner as they roll their way through the hairpin. Now it's all about corner exit here. Can James Carr nail the corner exit and get it done? He takes the grass slightly, but not too much. The gap as they charge onto the straight is 4.5 tenths. It's going to close down drastically, there's no doubt about that. It's a run all the way out towards the S's here, and Surudic is going to be well within attacking distance come the end of it as they head up towards the braking zone for the final time. The clock strikes 30 minutes, the checker flag awaits, and who's it going to be who takes it as they roll their way into the S's here? Well, James Carr stays ahead for now, and as he makes his way into turn number 9, he's got to hook up one more braking zone as he heads into the final corner, and as he rolls his way for the right-hander, I think he's done it. For as he emerges, he will make it 3 winners in 3 races. James Carr takes the win in race number 3 ahead of Surudic in P2. Romano takes P3 ahead of Shink in P4, and it's Logan Mckenzie who takes P5 as he crosses the line just ahead of David Barry. He held off the pursuing pack. Bauer P6, Rhodes P7, Matt Shepka P8, Gurka Demir P9, Aaron Lyon P10 as he crosses the line there, and then it will be John Lauzon a little bit further back who takes home P11 in race number 3. And then we can see behind him, Eric Statzer takes the win in the Delta class, P12 overall. Brilliant drive from Statzer ahead of Daniel Sedino. And then it is going to be the last lead lap finishers. Fernando Takahashi is a little way behind here. He'll be coming on home on the 3rd step of the Delta podium, I should say, in P14. But my goodness, what a race to finish on. Well, I think it was the case that sprint heats 1 and 2 were only to give us the appetite, and then the sprint feature was the main course. And indeed, what a main course of battling we have feasted on here today. And if there were any questions as Fernando Takahashi comes to the finish line here to complete all of our finishes on the lead lap, it's case if there were any questions as to whether we would be getting the season back underway where it left off before the mid-season break, it's no doubt today it has definitely carried on from where it left off. But let's take you through those race results subject to Stewart's confirmation from what was race number 3. And as those results are on the way, here they come. It is the case in the end. James Carr holding on in the sprint feature race here today at Mosport in round number 10 of the AlphaTauri Challenge Season 5 ahead of Wojciech Swidericz in P2. Giovanni Romano P3, a dogged and determined drive from Romano, but in the end the only driver he could pass was Francois Shink, and he just did not have the opportunities to take on that potential win. But still, he took a win in race number 2 and he'll be very pleased with that one, there's no doubt. Shink in P4, brilliant driving and battling from the Beaver Buzz driver. I think there will be a little bit of a question mark about that contact between himself and Jerome Bajulaz in race number 3, and they'll have to look at that post-race. Logan Mckenzie P5, David Bauer P6, Justin Rhodes P7, Matt Shepka P8, able to find his way ahead of his teammate, but not able to get back into that fight versus Justin Rhodes and David Bauer, the breakfast and dinner drivers, just being able to outpace the Torque Steer Racing drivers today. Aaron Lahr P10 for Torque Steer Racing as well. John Lauzon P11, Eric Statzer P12, Daniel Sedino P13, Fernando Takahashi P14. And then speaking of our drivers who finished either a lap down or did not finish the race, Micah Hendricks finishing 4 laps down there in P15. Jerome Bajulaz with that early retirement, P16. Robert Abrams, P17, not taken to the grid for the purposes of race number 3, much like Michael McLeod and also Joe Camilleri there, P19. Well, the big question, of course, is, ladies and gentlemen, with all of what's happened today, how does that shake up the standings? Well, we don't have the Teams Championship standings available, as I'm to understand it, unfortunately, but we do have the Drivers' Championship standings updated, and let's take you through those. It is the case that after round number 10, 473 points is the lead point margin, and that is Robert Abrams, who is leading by only 4 points over Francois Shink. It is the case that Shink's performance today has seen him close up that delta from 17 points to 4, and it means it is all to play for between the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver and the Beaver Buzz Energy driver with 3 rounds remaining. John Lauzon, best of rest there in P3, and it is the case on 397 points. He's not safe anymore from David Bauer or James Carr, the 2 breakfast for dinner drivers who today really showed that whilst they were battling one another, they were also looking to work together to get major points, and now they are well within reach of John Lauzon to try and take that final place in the top 3 as time wears on. Logan Mckenzie as well, with his upturning form over the course of the season on 368 points. He could be a major factor in that battle for being in 3rd place come the championship end. Jerome Bajulaz on 347 points. Room what could have been today, I think, in that P7 position. Micah Hendricks in P8 there, not picking up major points, of course, with those retirements in races 2 and 3. And then Connor Achatella not in attendance today, your Delta class leader in P9 overall, ahead of Matthew Shepka in P10. Now, Shepka on 288 points. The question is, where does our P11 driver stand? Well, as we look from 11th to 20th, it is the case that Gurkan Demir, his teammate, is the best part of what is 30-plus points behind in P11. A sizable margin ahead of Daniel Smith, who was not in attendance today, with Aaron Lahr there in P13. Although I do believe that Delta marker may be erroneous, but do not quote me on that. Justin Rhodes in P14, ahead of Daniel Sedino in P15. And it is the case there, joint P15 on points technically, but ahead based on result count, back 174 points apiece for Daniel Sedino and Auguste Blondel. Giovanni Romano in P17, Eric Statzer in P18, Adrian Fedorowski in P19, and Fernando Takahashi now into P20 after today's performance. Then, from P21 to P30, we have Paul Mikolajczyk in P21 ahead of Travis Hoare, followed by Wojciech Swidericz on his debut, picking up 66 points. A great performance there from the debutant and making his way up to P23 on early doors. Jesse Bodas P24, Wiley Cox P25, Dom Serio P26, and then Michael McLeod, Corey Fluke, Alex Jensen, and Jermaine Warren complete the top 30. And then from 31st to 40th, we have Spencer Cockayne, Jorge Zuniga, Casey Nemetz, Jonathan Stroll, Scotty Lund, Brandon Vez, Andrew Trickett, Joe Camilleri, Sean Good, and Steve Hansel completing the standings. We don't have the Teams Championship stats. I am just very quickly double checking. In this case, they're not currently available. We will bring you an updated team standings come at the end of the next round. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you did enjoy today's broadcast and you want to know more about the AlphaTauri Challenge, the ATC, then why not check out our official website, that is alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com, or if you want to go straight to the source and the heart of all the conversation of ATC, you can always join our Discord, invite link on screen as seen there, and it is the case if you join today, you can always catch up with all the drivers and the organisers, and particularly if you're looking to potentially sign up for perhaps a future season, or alternatively the remainder of the season, you can always throw your hat chat into the ring on the Discord. But it is the case now, ladies and gentlemen. We have a week from now to what is the next round as broadcasted. They'll be going racing on what is Monday the 26th of September and the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course on a very fast-flowing circuit, but we'll be bringing you all the racing action as if it were live in the Alpha Round at Mid-Ohio on that Sunday, the 2nd of October 2022. 3 rounds remain. Round number 11 is up next. We've only got 2 more Alpha rounds and all the points become ever more critical. Could we see Francois Shink potentially take the championship lead with only 2 rounds to go after next week? Only time will tell. Or will Robert Abrams be able to bounce back after a disastrous day at Mosport? Well, all that and more in a week's time. But until then, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain of Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.